Hi, Grant Zellner with the PDGA. In 2022, there are 13 candidates running for the PDGA Board of Directors. Just 2 seats are available. We asked all 13 candidates to sit down with us, introduce themselves, and share a few thoughts. Most responded, and were able to tell me and you why they want your vote when voting opens on July 1st. And you can read about all the candidates running for the PDGA Board of Directors by reading the Get to Know the Candidates article at pdga.com. Let's see what they had to say. Welcoming in now Tim Petrea, PDGA number 34756, out of Tifton, Georgia, a recreational director, or a recreation director, or something to do with recreation. That is the occupation Tim comes to us from. Tim, thanks for joining us today. Why don't you give us just a little bit more background on you, do a better job than I did of introducing you just now. Let us know also when and how you discovered the game of disc golf and why it remains a passion for you.
Been playing disc golf since the early 2000s. I started playing at a course up in North Georgia, Cloudland Canyon State Park. Went up there, got some rental discs, and I've been hooked ever since. Later joined the PDGA and have gained a lot of friends playing this sport. Disc golf is very central to my life. I work in recreation. I am a recreation director. So I spend a lot of time doing master plans and maintenance plans, league management and various things like that from all sports levels. So providing recreation is something that I do. In the afternoons when I get off work, it's kind of nice that I have a disc golf course a block and a half from the house because then I'll get to go play. It is a good stress reliever for me, as well as I've run a lot of tournaments over the years. One of the other things that I do in my life is I'm a high school sports official. The one that I do the most now, I've done baseball and basketball, but gave those 2 up so I could enjoy playing disc golf and getting out and hiking more. But I still do high school football. It is a passion of mine, managing those games and being a part of that. So that's, in a nutshell, that's a good bit about me. I am a Air Force veteran as well.
How long have you been a PDGA member?
Since I believe it's 2008 was when I finally joined the PDGA.
All right, Tim, let's dive right into a couple of questions for you. Your opportunity to sort of set yourself apart from other candidates. First of all, let's talk in terms of the PDGA's biggest and most obvious overarching core competencies. So talking about membership generation, membership retention, and obviously providing services to those members. And then the other core competency is essentially competition, events, creating and maintaining events, making them more accessible, improving their quality, etc. So let's go with membership first. As a board of directors member, what are some of your ideas when it comes to member services, increasing and retaining those members? And as a board member, how will you contribute to that objective?
Probably one of the big thing is, along with some of the other things that I'm talking about doing, is working with recreation departments in the areas, is trying to establish on the National Recreation and Park Association scene, as well as the state level, having those parks departments work with the local clubs to help make even the PDGA membership more relevant, to potentially be a part of league play that they may do within the departments, but to also help keep them active in leagues that are appropriate for their level of play, because a lot of times people will get burnt out playing in the PDGA. They'll go hard and heavy the first couple of years. I've seen it for the 15 years that I've been a PDGA member. People will go hard and heavy for a little while, and then they just drop out. And it's trying to determine why they're dropping out, what's going on. Are they just basically maxing themselves out, or are they beginning to find out that at their level, are there things that are just not meeting their needs when it comes to competition and things like that? So I think probably And the extra thing is looking to expand local leagues, working with clubs and working with the Parks and Rec departments to help expand the local leagues with friendly match play games or ladder tournaments, things that they can potentially get their credit for their PDGA membership and get that rating that everybody just loves to get, and being able to do that as well as being able to get out and get the competition that they need, while also growing the club and growing the sport. So there's going to need to be some, as we grow with it, conversation with those local clubs, so that way they can get more creative in how they're doing those weekly events, because as the sport is growing, even in small towns like mine, we're going to have to start doing leagues for the advanced as well as the players who are just beginning. So trying to determine and be able to shout out to our rec departments and some of the local parks that, hey, we are relevant and we need to be able to vie for some space, and be able to have that park dedicated at that point in time to this disc golf league. So, making that communication, because in a lot of parks, when it comes to the league play, they aren't allowing you to close down that park area because the disc golf may not be as relevant. So trying to make that communication to a lot of the parks departments that, hey, it is relevant and it is important that you close that area down for this event, because it'll help that event flow better, but also from a safety standpoint, when these discs are flying around, you don't want to have that walking path open during that time. That's just small things to open up conversations, but the biggest thing is improving the relationship with the park systems while also getting more creative with the league play.
Let's go for a tangible example, maybe based on your experience. What could the PDGA do that might be a board presented or at least a board overseen initiative? What could they do that would better engage those parks and recs departments that are all over the country and the world?
Gain a presence in the National Recreation and Parks Association would be one thing. The National Recreation Parks Association has their conference that meets once a year. Make an attempt to either have someone from the board or multiple people from the board to present at one of the classes at the NRPA convention, and to make it something that the people would get credit for, with their continuing education units, because that's extremely important for us as park professionals. But to be able to educate us as park professionals on exactly what the PDGA is, because there's a lot of the park professionals that still, there's many of them that understand and they treat disc golf with respect, but there's a good bit of them that are still at that level that I've heard many times, those disc golfers. And I think by getting on that level, on the national level, would be one thing, but then also taking the time to help create some online education, some online classes that maybe it could be a forum that would invite some of these Parks and Rec professionals to be a part of it, but then even more importantly, on the state level, make an initiative to be a part of the state Parks and Recreation organization, and really, in a sense, lobbying with the state Parks and Rec organization that, hey, disc golf is extremely important in your park system. It is more than just an amenity that just people place in your park. It is an important activity, and as you'll begin to see if you look at it, it is something that has become a very popular lifestyle in our park system.
You also mentioned the promotion and hopes of growing leagues, local leagues, and I think that dovetails nicely to the bigger picture of competition and of events. Outside of leagues, what are your thoughts when it comes to creating, sustaining, raising the quality level of events? Maybe we're talking above league level, so we're talking about, say, C tiers and up, for example. What are your thoughts on that, and how can you contribute as a board member to that initiative?
It's basically keeping an ear to how the tournament player is responding to the changes that have happened with the leagues, making sure that the rules are continuing to be relevant. Being a type of person, if it's, for me, I try to listen to what some of the people are saying about the rules, and if they're discussing some of the rules that are out there right now. And probably one of the biggest hot topics lately has been the Mando rule, that has become, for some, very controversial, but then for some, people understand it. So it's letting a rule stand the test of time, and is it something that's relevant? Is it something that adds to the game, or is it a rule are these rules that need to be tweaked and better defined? And then taking the time, because the game has advanced so much, more people are coming, people are throwing it a lot farther, as well as the courses are becoming longer. Working with tournament directors, educating more tournament directors to how to manage the flow in some of these tournaments, because one of the frustrations in a lot of tournaments that I've gone to in the last year or so, if these tournaments are packed out, is the pace of play. It's becoming very slow because of the fact that these tournaments are packing out, and sometimes it would help a tournament director to understand how to position certain groups, or if it's a tee time experience, how to position those tee times and maybe space some more of the tee times out. But basically, as a board member, for me, it's increasing the education process to our membership. If it means having some things available on our website, but more empowering our staff with the PDGA to say, what do we need to help you guys do so that you can make some of these education opportunities available, because the staff is there. And I would say that the ability is there, but just finding the mechanisms to be able to get that stuff out there, and then trying to make sure that it continues to stay relevant. But I think education is extremely important.
You've talked a little bit about engaging Parks and Recs departments on the whole. We've talked a little bit about continuing attention to rules and updating the rules and keeping them relevant. And we've talked a little bit about general education of disc golfers and of our membership at large when it comes to the rules of play, etiquette of play, those sorts of things. I want to make sure I give you a chance to list for us any other personal priorities that you have that maybe we haven't talked about yet that are sort of a part of your, let's call it a platform when it comes to being an elected member of the PDGA board. Are there any other priorities you want to make sure you get a chance to mention today?
Well, again, as a Parks and Rec professional, one of the big things for me is accessibility, making sure that people have access to parks, which means as a disc golfer, people should have access to disc golf courses. But it also means that as I go to a park and I'm playing disc golf, it's important to me to understand that there's other park users out there, that there are the people that are using the dog park. And some of the parks I've been out and played, more of the parks out west, you have mountain bikers coming through the course, and then you have the walkers. There are various groups that they feel like they have the right to that park. Nobody else has the right to that park. And again, it's the education process, but making sure that we as disc golfers remember to treat that course as a gift, and the fact that we have the ability to access that course. Again, it's a gift, but to treat it as such, and then when we're going through that course, to pick up the trash, to leave it better than we found it, and that we treat the other park users with respect. If it means they're trying to walk through, or the mountain bikers trying to come through, instead of creating an antagonistic environment, we create an environment that, hey, this is a good thing that we're all being able to recreate out here together. Making sure that we stay away from an attitude of entitlement and an attitude of just plain thankfulness that we get another day to be able to play this sport. That's extremely important to me. And then one of the other things is, since I'm involved in scholastic sports as an official, I would love to be able to see the National Federation of High School Sports begin to recognize disc golf as one of the sports, and people be able to, students would be able to participate in disc golf as a high school sport. I think this is something that we'll see eventually. I would love to be able to see it sooner than later. So I think whatever we need to do to lobby with the National Federation of High School Sports, or continue to lobby with them to make this a possibility, I believe that it will grow the sport as we go over the years.
Well, as we begin to wrap up our short time together today, Tim, we've gotten to speak quite a bit about your background in parks and recreations. We've gotten to speak a little bit about your background as a scholastic sports official. Is there any other experience or skill that you would like to highlight before I let you go that sets you apart as a board of directors candidate and that might prompt somebody to consider voting for you?
I guess there's two things. One, I was when I was in North Carolina, I was the president of a nonprofit there that was a clean water initiative, and basically every bit of water that flowed through that county originated in that county. So I was the chairman of that board in a sense, and it was a nonprofit. I understand. So coming to a board of directors, I understand what the role of a board of directors is, and that is to support the lead staff and to make sure that they have what they need to have. And I'm able to look at the way that a board works and help to make it to move on and move further. And then the other thing is, one of the things that I've been able to do over my years when it comes to working with Parks and Rec departments is be able to take a park that has basically been forgotten about, or is having a tough time, kind of a park that's on the island of misfit toys, if you will. But it's a park that needs some attention, needs some love. And I've been able to help take some of those parks, breathe a new life into them, even if it means redirecting some of the things in that park, restructuring the way some of the things flow to make sure that it's a big success. And I had one of those experiences when I was in Walton County, Georgia, and we built a park there that had a lot of high crime. I mean, there were a lot of things going on at that park that did not need to be going on. Then there was one guy that walked with us while we were building that course, and he ended up, once I left that park system, he helped give birth to a club there, and grew that club, ended up making the course better, invited me to come back for a re-grand opening of that park. Then he took that club to new levels and got more people involved. And while I was recently out in Wyoming working out there, he contacted me because he was concerned about the relationship with the club and the city that was going to be taking new ownership of that park. And I helped him navigate through that process. And then it was probably weeks later I found out that he passed away from a heart attack. So as sad as that was, and John, a great guy, the club rallied around that, rallied around his family when that happened and began to show some love there. But the grand scheme of things, instead of that park being called Matthews Park now, it's called John Reed Memorial. And there's nothing on that park that says I had anything to do with that, but everything that the love that John poured into that park is still being remembered. And that, to me, disc golf, in the end of the day, is about the relationships that we build. And that was just a shining example of that. I'm just glad to be a part of it and look forward to having this opportunity to compete again, because this is my third year trying, and I want to continue to do it because I really want to be a part of the board.
It's a beautiful story to end on. Disc golf is a community like no other. We're out of time. It's Tim Petrea, 34756, running for PDGA Board of Directors here in 2022. Tim, as I've said to everybody else, best of luck, and we will see you down the road. Now welcoming Philip Mills, PDGA number 151411 of Rockville, Maryland, a CPA and auditor by trade, and running for your vote potentially as a member of the PDGA Board of Directors. Philip, thank you very much for spending a little time with us today. Why don't you introduce yourself to us just a little bit more? Tell us how you discovered the game of disc golf, why it's a passion, those kinds of things.
Yeah, thanks. It's a pleasure, Grant. Thanks for having me on. But just to dive right into it, how did I discover it? Well, I have a brother-in-law who Ryan is, I guess it was fall of 2020, invited the whole entire family out to go play disc golf. Funny enough, I actually declined the first time. I'm a big NFL fan, so my team was playing, and I was like, I can't miss a game. So I didn't go the first time. Heard the family had a good time, so I was like, hey, maybe I'll hit them up again. Hey, do you have another weekend we can go? I went down to something called Bulls Run Regional Park in Virginia, played the game. I was like, this is pretty fun. It was just my wife, my brother-in-law, one of his friends, discovered U-Disc while we were out there. I was like, I wonder if any courses are nearby where I'm in Maryland. Long and behold, there was one 12 minutes away, Seneca Creek State Park. On the way home, I wasn't the one driving. On the way home, though, I bought one on Amazon, bought 2 starter packs immediately. I was like, all right, I'm going to go do this thing. I even ordered next day shipping so I can let's go this weekend, let's play this weekend. Long and behold, it rained all weekend long, didn't get out. So of course that's how it worked out. But that's how I kind of got introduced to it. Pretty glad I am. Like everyone else says, hey, I wish I got to know it earlier, but here we are today trying to make the best out of it. And to your point of the passion, that's a great question, and it's hard to answer. It just kind of is. It just kind of inherently is a passion. It's, the competition, the people, the nature, going outside and being in nature. That's always fun, right? It's fun. All the discs, all the cool plastic out there, shiny Orbit Halo plastic, all the cool meme discs out there, Disc Golf Pro Tour, YouTube content. There's so much out there that's enjoyable. And also, volunteers put a lot of time into making this sport and community work. Makes the community great. I want to give back. I want to help out. One thing that's kind of cool in our area is they've recently been doing bake sales. I'm also a big baker, cookies, cakes, brownies, you name it. And they've been doing for some of the women's clubs nearby over here and women's events. We've been having bake sales, and all the proceeds go to the women's tournaments and events. So I've definitely gotten involved in that. For one, I like to bake, and it's going for a good cause, and I can eat some of the proceeds. So that's always fun as it is. But I became a member, I think, fall 2020. My first event was January 1st, 2021 in freezing cold rain. So that was quite the experience. But that's a little bit how I kind of got introduced to it. And
Nice. Well, on the website, PDGA.com, there is a article entitled Get to Know the 13 Candidates for the Board of Directors. Every one of the candidates, including yourself, has a bit of a bio and a candidate statement. Yours is, if not the longest candidate statement, it's easily in the top 2 or 3. So I think what we're going to end up doing here with the time that we have left is just giving you a chance to sort of summarize, sort of hone in on some of your key points that you mentioned there. And then people that are so inclined can go and read a little bit more about your statement. So let's start here. The PDGA has a couple of overarching core competencies, and they have to do with membership, growing members, retaining members, and providing services to those members. And they have to do with competition, which is sort of a similar goal, but with regard to events, growing the number of events, increasing participation in those events, improving the access to those events and the quality of them. So let's start with membership first. What are your specific ideas when it comes to growing the membership, retaining the membership, and serving the membership? And as a board member, how do you feel you will contribute to this objective?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up membership, because without the members, the PDGA doesn't exist. So the sole focus of a membership organization is the member. So as a seat on the board, and anyone on the board, that should be the sole focus. So I'm glad you brought up. I do have some thoughts on that. So one of the biggest things is, I will talk about it later. If you read my bio, you'll see I have a financial background. So one thing I want to be able to do is to take a look under the hood, if you will, really understand, make sure your funds are being used effectively, that your money is actually going towards benefits. They're actually being used for the purpose of the mission. Also look at the PDGA funds, make sure they're being used correctly, as reasonable as possible. Nonprofit resources are limited. We need to use them as best as possible. One thing I think would be interesting to look into, and maybe this has been done before, I'd be interested in seeing the research if I was elected, but to go with, how about tiered membership? To my understanding right now, we have basically, you have your $50, and I think you also have a few other options with the Birdie Club, the Ace Club, but I think that's more so additional swag versus benefits. So I think it would be interesting to look into a tiered membership, maybe of a $25 option, a $50 option, a $100 option, and based on your level of commitment and what you're interested in, you can pick the option that works best for you. Maybe you don't need the magazine subscription possibly, so maybe you can do a lower, or maybe you don't do 10 events a year. Not everyone necessarily has time to watch live disc golf every weekend. So not all the benefits are valued equally across all the members. So taking a look at potential packages to help get more members in, maybe a lower dollar threshold, a lower barrier of entry can help get more in. I think that'd be awesome as well. And then I can use my financial background to say, hey, how much does it really cost to provide these members, provide these benefits to the members, and really look into that? Because, I've audited, kind of talk about my bio, I audit a lot of companies, a lot of associations, and a lot of associations expand their benefits to maybe disability, life insurance. There's a lot of different benefits out there. And I think as an association, we need to take a look and say, hey, not just add benefits just for to say, hey, just make a longer list of benefits. What do our members actually need? And kind of look into that and leverage the number of members we currently have to get discounted rates, discounted benefits. Let's use the assets we have, and the more members we get, the more we can leverage. So just there's some things there. The technology that's been going on, I think expanding on technology is great. PDGA live scoring. I never have to reconcile another UDIS to live scoring scorecard anymore, which is awesome. So helps out a lot.
Let's take that same mindset and talk specifically about events and about the competition element of the PDGA and that initiative that is ever present for us. What kinds of thoughts do you have when it comes to that whole sort of realm?
Yeah, and I think I have three main thoughts, but in the interest of time, I'll try to summarize them as best as I can. As you guys see in my statement, I have a hard time doing that, but I'll try my best on this one. So supporting TDs, TDs are the representation, the face of the PDGA at events. We need to support our TDs. I've heard great things about the event support hotline that the PDGA has out there. I want to continue that as well. We need to review event feedback and TD feedback for complaints and how things are going. If there are TDs that are not performing up to the standard of the PDGA, have some type of program to bring them up to the standard we need. And if that doesn't work, we have to consider other options, because we don't want a new member going into their first event and having a horrible experience. If you're a first-time player, you go to an event, you have a horrible experience. What are the odds you're going to want to re-up your membership? What are the odds you're going to want to come back to play another event? We don't want to discourage people from not playing events. We want to up the quality and the participation. So that's my first point. Second point of divisions. I don't know about you, Grant, but I've noticed a lot. Players are getting better. There's more people in the sport. We should take a look at the numbers to really make sure we're providing the members of a competitive environment. Some lower rated players, in their opinion, don't think they have a chance. They don't think they can be competitive because of how the divisions work themselves out. Some tournaments don't even offer MA4, so they're already what they believe at disadvantage. Everyone doesn't need to be 1,000 rated to have a meaningful competition. We should look for all skill levels. Juniors as well. I know juniors is a big emphasis in the area that I live in. Junior-only tournaments, early registration for juniors and women divisions. So that's my second point. And the third point is the fun one, which is in the headlines all over the place right now for anyone who's in the industry. Foot faults, equipment malfunction, rules. So looking really into the rules, that's kind of a big hot topic right now from this past weekend. Rules constantly evolve. They evolve for a purpose. We should be making rule changes for events like what happened. As soon as Corey Ellis's putt fell through the bottom of the cage, I was, I looked at the Q&A, I looked at the rule book. How do we handle situations? Is there a precedent? What do the rules say? Is the basket up to standards? I think what would be a cool idea, maybe it's already happened, is have a brainstorming session. What could go wrong? Have everyone in the room, what could go wrong, and throw things at the board and see what sticks. disc golf is a sport, but it's also an entertainment platform. So think of this. Imagine we're watching Worlds last year. James Conrad throws that shot. It just kind of rattles around, just falls right through the bottom of that basket. I could only imagine how that would have worked out. So I think this is a great time for the Disc Golf Pro Tour, the PDGA, and the sport to grow. Certainly not at the expense of Mr. Ellis and the spirit of competition, but organizations to be able to respond to this is critical as well. So things like that I think are great to discuss.
Well, I've kind of forced you to stay in a couple of lanes here thus far, talking about membership and competition. So now I want to open it up to you to go sort of outside of those lanes. And you already have just a little bit, so I'm just going to give you a little more leeway to talk about maybe any other specific overarching issues, problems. You can use your own terminology, that things that you see given your unique background that you want to make sure you address, and you want to make sure those that are voting know that you intend to address those things.
Sure. And I'm going to kind of meld this question with the competition a little bit, and then kind of go more to like my accountant background. I didn't really touch on the footfall issue real quick, but I didn't really want, not specific to that, but I think the overarching conversation we should have is that this is a self-governing sport. Why is it so easy to call a foul in basketball before people are scared to death to call a violation in disc golf, right? Grant, I don't know about you, but people over here on the courts, people are calling fouls and giving out fouls like it's Halloween, free candy to everyone. So why is it so different between disc golf and other sports that we played? I called a violation one time, and you would have literally thought I kicked a puppy or something. Like people are so afraid to call a violation because of the repercussions. It really shouldn't be like that. People can have conversations. Should we have a bigger circle? Should we adjust step putting? But let's not forget the overarching concept of self-governing sport. Let's kind of keep that always in the back of our minds to discuss and think about ways to improve that. To your point on other matters, maybe things I might want to champion going forward. So if you read my bio, or if you haven't yet, take a look at it. But my primary objective is financial stewardship. I talk a lot about financial matters. So as far as my primary focus is going to be, everything and all things: audit, finance, budgets, 990s, functional allocation of expenses, internal controls, money management, compliance regulations. There's a lot of fun things. I'm sure I've just bored all your viewers there, Grant. But the cool and sexy ideas out there, like getting disc golf in the Olympics, those things are awesome. But at the same time, to be able to do things like that, we need a solid foundation to even be able to get to that point. So those are some of the things. I could talk about this for hours, not going to do it. But I think what's important is knowing as much as I do through audit and teaching my accounting experience, I understand the importance of having someone on the board with financial expertise to monitor the association's financial matters. That's a big part of it. I want to continue to push transparency and kind of keep the members informed along the process. I think we could do a better job of marketing and kind of showing the transparency of what's going on. Don't get me wrong, the PDGA does the requirements every year. I think it's just better ways to share that information along the way. I think one thing that I'd be curious if any other candidates talk about or anything gets brought up is, there's probably a lot of great candidates. There's probably a lot of great people who can sit on the board. And sometimes what we need to consider, though, is the composition of the board. It's not just putting a whole bunch of great people together. It's putting people together to have different skill levels. So you wouldn't want the entire board to be all the same expertise. If everyone was a marketing expert, what about all the other factions of a business? So when making this decision on the board, it's kind of good to look at the composition of it. Because quite honestly, I wouldn't be running. If there was someone already on the board with financial expertise, I really wouldn't provide much utility or comparative advantage of trying to run and be on the board. So that's one of the big things I think about. The one other thing to bring up that I don't know if you're going to bring it up or not, but just to mention is very serious. Disc golf's fun, but there's some very serious matters coming up within the next couple of years to talk about. And that's, the PDGA has these medical subcommittees. They're researching a framework for gender-based divisions, prohibited substances. If I get elected, I know within my term, these items are going to be brought up. There's going to be big decisions that need to be made. So I've started my research on these topics. I need to be prepared for these conversations. I'm not a medical expert. I don't pretend to be, but I'm interested in seeing the research of these subcommittees. It's just, the board, the PDGA, the subcommittees need to do proper due diligence to respect the members to make the most informed decision possible. So those are just some primary objectives or things I'm interested in kind of keeping on the agenda, if you will.
question. Due to your unique background, your CPA and financial background, I want to ask you, what one issue, perhaps related to finances, do you think that nobody is paying attention to, but it's vitally important and you intend to do something about it?
That nobody's paying attention to. I guess I can speak on that's. I have a million things running through my head at the moment, but and I will make this statement with just saying 100%. I have absolutely no inside information at all on the PDGA, nothing at all. I can only see what you guys see, the financials, the 990s that gets reported. I think the biggest thing is for nonprofits in particular. So I was talking nonprofits in particular is, and this is going to be once again a little boring, but internal controls, making sure people don't wear too many hats within an organization. That that one person isn't doing literally everything. That's approving invoices, that's signing the checks, that's mailing the checks, because that's where nonprofits tend to get themselves in a little bit of trouble. Because once again, nonprofits are so limited on the resources available to them, they have to optimize and use it to the best of their ability. So when that happens, you usually have smaller departments, and some people wear too many hats, and that's where most people can kind of get in trouble a little bit. That's where issues happen, and 100% know nothing but the PDGA in regards to this matter, but that's where fraud can happen. That's where that can happen along the way for organizations. So we want to put preventive controls in place to not have those issues occur. So that's just kind of one thing off the top of my head I could think of there.
No, that's excellent. You definitely touch on some of those topics in your bio, which, again, I say is extensive. It covers a lot of ground, and I say that as a good thing. People can certainly read about all of our candidates and their priorities on the website. Thank you for highlighting, though, for us and clarifying for us some of those points. So we will let you go right now, and we will get this quickly in front of our membership so that they can learn all about you, Mr. Mills, Philip Mills, candidate for Board of Directors at the PDGA in 2022. Thank you so much, Philip, for your time. Welcoming in now, Michel Munn, PDGA number 70774 out of Petal, Mississippi. Michel is a CEO of a transportation division company and is joining us today as a candidate for the PDGA Board of Directors for 2022. Michel, thanks for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and finish your bio out for us, and in particular, let us know what got you into the game of disc golf, when you joined the PDGA, and why your passion remains to this day for our sport.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm one of the vital members of a family business that we kind of focus on customer service driven consulting services and online education and training. And I got my start in disc golf right before my first child was born in 2013, and quickly got involved with my local club. And just like anybody, was immediately hooked. One of the first times I ever played, hit an ace within the first 30 days of playing my first round. It kind of had me snagged. Quickly got involved in the local club scene, the Hattiesburg Disc Golf Association, and was soon elected as one of their lead members as the treasurer, and then quickly after that the president of the club. It was kind of the jumping off point of my involvement in what I say is the kind of the administrative side of disc golf, and it's really what's been my passion. And I enjoy playing. Some of my closest friends are now disc golfers, but my passion has and continues to be the administrative side of disc golf, whether that's being involved in the local club, as I was with the Hattiesburg Disc Golf Association as the president for 4 years, serving on the board of directors for the Southern National Disc Golf Series for close to 6 years, and as well as being the PDGA state coordinator for Mississippi. So that's kind of been where I found my ability to make the most impact is on the administrative side of disc golf, and to really be able to promote the growth locally in my community, and I've been able to do that through being involved in getting courses put in at local churches, local state parks, being just a resource locally for not only the Professional Disc Golf Association, but for disc golf in general. So once I kind of jumped into that, I jumped into running my first event in 2016, which was the Southern National Doubles Championship. I quickly grew that event into one of the largest payout doubles tournaments in all the United States, and it really just kind of furthered my drive and my passion to learn about running tournaments, and not just running your normal tournaments, but running top-notch local regional tournaments that really brings top players and lots of people traveling to the area and has an economic impact in our area. So once I did that with a group of guys, we started what is now the largest disc golf tournament in Mississippi, called the Big Rip Classic. It was Mississippi's first ever all A-tier event a few years ago, and this year we currently filled it in a matter of hours at 325 players. So that's given me kind of a unique ability to work with sponsors, work locally to grow the courses, work with the state parks and the people that own these parks to bring people from all over the Southeast to compete in this event. And with that gave me the unique opportunity to be involved in some other events, such as the Ledgestone Insurance Open. I've been one of the lead staff members for that event since 2016 or 2017, and I've continued to be the director of operations for that event, in charge of the entire check-in process for all 2,000 players and player pack assembly, as well as 2019 Worlds. I'm also getting the unique ability to be a part of Junior Master Worlds this year, as well as the Ledgestone again this summer. So I'll be making 2 trips this summer. So I'm on the ground level, constantly involved in the growth of disc golf. And I'm not somebody that's going to talk about a lot about what I'm gonna do. I'm talking about the stuff that I have done. I'm currently involved in helping courses be put in at the local high school right now. We just put in 9 baskets at the local high school here, and so those are the things that I'm constantly involved in, and kind of my background in discovering disc golf and my passion for this side of disc golf, which is administrative, boards, running tournaments, and I feel like that's where my skills can be best utilized.
Sure. It sounds like a lot of sort of localized experience there. So I'm going to draw you sort of out to a broader picture here with these next couple of questions. You've touched on 2 or at least one wing of PDGA's overarching mandate, which is, of course, competition and events. As you know, another overarching mandate for the PDGA is membership in general, growing the membership, retaining those members, and serving those members. So pulling back to a broader picture like that of a board member, can you talk about some of your ideas? Let's go with membership first. Your ideas or your contributions that you would like to make as a board member when it comes to growing membership and serving those members and retaining those members.
Well, I think the best thing as a board member we can do is listen to the members, and I think asking more questions, maybe involving more surveys of our current members to try to see what it is that they want from their membership. What are some of the topics that they're faced with that they would like to see addressed. I think communicating more with our members is important, and I think it can be lost, especially with the amount of growth that the PDGA has seen in such a rapid amount of time. And I think that would be one of the things, if not the main thing I would focus on, is making sure that our members are being heard, making sure that we as a board are asking the right questions, and making sure that that's kind of what's driving, the policy changes and the things that we're, the decisions that we're making as a board. And I think that's where, just me as a member in particular, I think that's one thing that I would see is maybe is lacking is, the opportunity for members to really have their voice heard.
Okay. With regard to events now, on a broader scale, the scale viewed by the PDGA when it comes to increasing the total number of events, serving those events, making those events better and better in terms of quality, what kinds of ideas and contributions would you intend to make with regard to that issue?
Well, I think just taking some of the things that have worked, I think increasing the level of tournaments, I think, starts with the education of our tournament directors. Everybody or anybody can, once they become a PDGA official, can get on there and run a tournament. And I'm seeing here on my local level tons of new tournament directors for the first time. And quite frankly, I don't want these tournament directors to have to make some of the same mistakes that I made. So I think training and education and development for our tournament directors, I think it can be delivered in a number of ways. And as a company that we specialize in, delivering online training and e-learning through our learning management system, I see the benefit that it gives our customers. And I think it's important that, just a base level knowledge of how to use Tournament Manager and the ins and outs of registration sites like Disc Golf Scene can prove very beneficial to first-time TDs because as a state coordinator, I'm constantly answering those questions, mentoring TDs, giving them tips and tricks that I've learned by running large events. And I think we can do a better job on the PDGA's end of delivering. Maybe it's just a intro to tournament directing, and and it be a required course that these tournament directors have to go through. And I think that will give them a good base level knowledge of how to increase the level of what players are beginning to expect with live scoring, with turnaround times of tee times and shotgun starts, and once the lunch break's over, they're expecting to know which hole they're going to start on. Just some of those basic things I think are important, and I think the players should demand those things, and I think the PDGA as a whole, we can do a better job of delivering that education and training to tournament directors.
All right. Interesting thoughts. Thank you for those. How about anything that maybe we haven't mentioned yet? Are there any issues or priorities that you want to bring to the board of directors and that you hope to help address or solve if you are elected to the board?
Well, I think that the one I just spoke on is probably one of my passions because I have the inner knowledge of working with online development and online education and training, and I think that's probably one of the things that I can immediately make an impact on in the board is working with their team. We take a training module from its infancy from an idea to a script to a PowerPoint / training module to voiceovers to putting it all together to provide a unique training experience. And I think that's probably the way that I can most quickly impact my time on the board is by helping get that off the ground, because I do think it's lacking, and that's just from my experience as a state coordinator and as a TD and constantly answering those questions. So that would probably be one of the things that I think we could immediately address and try to make some positive impact on immediately.
Okay, interesting stuff. Here's sort of a unique question for you, Michael. You mentioned your work over several years now at some big events. I'm focused primarily on Ledgestone for the simple reason that the majority of those listening right now or watching right now are probably familiar with the size and scope of that event. So when it comes to that event and things maybe people have seen or things you can explain, what successes have you had there that you think you could bring to the board and apply across the board to PDGA events at large?
Well, I think just being one of the people that manages some of the logistics of the day-to-day, you see all the inner workings of every aspect of the largest disc golf event, essentially in the United States, potentially in the world, and you're able to learn how to work as a team, which I think is very important, not just as someone that's a main staff member, but anybody that's involved in that team. And I believe it's one of the best overall disc golf staffs in any tournament that's run. And I think just showing the growth of that event, it's kind of proven. But I think overall, I think the biggest thing that I find is that being able to see every bit from the check-in process to the behind-the-scenes stuff of getting the courses ready, and all of those things provides a unique ability to know exactly how a top-tier event should be run, working closely with the PDGA at Worlds and seeing what they require and what they demand, I think gives and that's really one of the reasons why I went up there initially, was to gain knowledge and education on how top-tier events are run. And understanding the logistics, understanding how to work with a team and a staff like that I think gives me, unique ability to understand how all of that works and understand the inner workings of a large event like that.
What specifically maybe are some of those inner workings that are so specifically successful that others ought to be doing? So something maybe more specific than just seeing a good team work together. What is it that makes that team so good that others maybe can learn from?
Well, I think creating an environment where the staff wants to return. It's difficult. A lot of times disc golf tournaments rely on volunteers, whether they're volunteer staffs or and that's a big part of it. One thing that event's done differently is the staff has consistently been compensated, and it's allowed us to, and that compensation has been adequate for the time that we invest in the event. And I think that has created a level of consistent staffing to where you don't have as much turnover, and you have the ability to work on things that you may have or mistakes that you may have made in the past. And coming back year after year, you're seeing the same faces, you're seeing the same staff members that are running the same courses, and that allows you to expand on the event and really expand on the experience. And I think the overall player experience of that event is maybe one of the best, if not the best in the world. And I think that more people can kind of see how that's being done and replicate that on a maybe a smaller scale, obviously.
It's an interesting example. Thank you. Now that we are getting toward the end of our time, I want to give you a final opportunity to highlight any unique skills or experiences, unique perspectives, basically to give you the chance to set yourself apart here as an option for people to vote for, and to sort of give them the reason why they should vote for you.
Well, I would just say that I think I'm not going to say something that I'm not going to do. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I think I bring a certain level of experience to this position and to the board, and I think that I've constantly, with my events, I've tried to outwork everybody. I'll continue to do that. I'm in a unique position in my business that it does allow me and give me the opportunity to focus on things that I'm passionate about, and disc golf is such an incredible passion of mine. And so not only do I have the time to do it? But I'm also very passionate about this side of disc golf. I've proven that on the local level. I'm ready to take that to to the global board of directors, and I think that I would be a vital member of that team and a vital member of that board if I'm elected, and I think my track record proves that.
All right, Michael Munn, excellent closing comments there. He is PDGA number 70774, running for your vote in the 2022 PDGA Board of Directors elections. Thanks once again, Michael, for your time today. Welcome now to Logan Staton, PDGA 97730, out of Hillsborough, North Carolina, where Logan is the owner of Basket Bashers Disc Golf, among other pursuits. Logan, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your interest in being a PDGA board member. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you came to discover disc golf and why it remains a passion?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I started playing disc golf fresh out of high school. I was very big into sports. I love the competitive environment, the competitive atmosphere that sports brung, and I was also an outdoorsman. I love to hunt, I love to fish, and things like that. And so my brother, who was very much so a weekend casual player, right, like a six-pack of beer and way over par, was like, "Hey, I found this sport that I think you would love to play," and he got me into it, and just immediately it clicked with me because I'm able to be outdoors in nature, and then to have the competitive atmosphere with either your buddies who are your card mates or even with yourself trying to better your own score, things like that. And then as you see yourself progress, the bug just got more and more addictive, and here we are. 2017 is when I signed up. So I think I picked up a disc in 2015. That's about the time I graduated high school, and but never got super serious in it until a couple years later down the road.
Great. When did you become a PDGA member? What year was that? 2017. So. Mm-hmm. All right, then. Well, let's dive right into it. The PDGA has obviously a lot of things that the PDGA does globally in terms of the game, supporting the game, growing the game. We'll couch it into two primary mandates here, though, for you. The first is membership, growing membership, retaining those members, serving those members. And the second is competition. So sort of a similar tactic, but talking about events, increasing the number of events, increasing accessibility to those events for wider audiences, improving their quality. So let's start with membership. In the thought process of being a board member, what are your ideas when it comes to increasing and retaining members and best serving those members, and how, as a board member, would you contribute?
Sure. So I've always liked the idea, and the thing I appreciate with the PDGA is that the original members, right, the early thousands members, a lot of them that are still around are still members. The one thing I haven't been crazy about is a lot of them don't compete anymore, but they still have to pay that same $50, $75, fee in order to re-up their membership. I think it would be beneficial for people who perhaps can't compete anymore but still want to support the PDGA, still want to be able to have those stats readily available and things like that, to have a reduced fee, or perhaps a reduced rate where maybe you can play C tiers under them, but it's not a B tier or higher classification membership, things like that. That way you can, you still get to retain some members that you otherwise might not have, but they're not having to pay the same thing as you and me are, who are playing tournaments every weekend or something like that. And then obviously we'll dive into the growing the sport for children and women, as is in my candidacy, but that's a big part of that as well.
Let's take the same question to competition and to events themselves. Obviously, a major focal point for the PDGA. Talk about your ideas and the contributions you hope to make when it comes to events in general, meaning increasing them, increasing access, raising their level of quality, etc.
Sure, yeah. So I think right off, I think the PDGA has a very good standard put in place for, say, the amateur side of a tournament. This is what the AMs have to pay in, so this is what they have to get back out in either merch or quality of experience or things like that. I think it could be a little bit stricter on the standards where somebody's not putting, say, a water bottle in a fruit pack and saying, well, that's a $7 value right there. Nobody wants a water bottle and a fruit pack in their players pack, right? Things like that. I think the rules can maybe be tightened up a little bit. One thing we try and do locally when we run tournaments is put a big value item in there and then have filler items around them. So we did like grip 6 belts for a tournament. One local TD did, I think they were Solomon's, either Solomon's or Adidas shoes that he had gotten a crazy discount on. Last year for a tournament, it was $75 entry. You got $150 MVP bag in your players pack, like an actual like disc bag, baskets, things like that. Not saying that every tournament needs to have stuff like that, but more quality player pack items for the AMs and things like that. And then just running quality events like you said. I mean, there's plenty of flex starts and stuff which are great to have, great to get that kind of tournament environment in, but having more B tiers and A tiers in states that have the courses to be able to host tournaments of that quality and that caliber, focusing more on that and getting those higher end, higher quality tournaments scheduled there.
Okay, great. Interesting stuff there. Broadening things out a little bit so you can connect them to these two sort of overarching mandates, or we can branch out. What are some other issues or priorities that you personally hope to champion if elected to the PDGA Board of Directors? Or to put it a different way, where do you hope to see changes or improvements?
Sure. So a big thing for me, and we're seeing it a lot right now, especially leading up here to AM Worlds, is clarification on the rules. I think the PDGA has good rules in place, but I think sometimes those rules can be misunderstood or not quite as easy to figure out, right, on the course, things like that. Um, the step putt, the foot faulting on step putts, things like that. Who calls that? How does that call work? Where does that go from there when there's only 2 players in a playoff? How does that get called? Where does the official at? Things like that. So I'd like to see the rules kind of clarified a little bit better and easier to access, because right now we have the PDGA manual, we have it online as well, which makes it extremely easy. But if I'm trying to find a certain rule and I'm flipping through 8-9 pages of a manual trying to find it, that takes up time out on the course, instead of perhaps having like a keyword or a search box available on your phone where you can kind of pull up all the rules that apply to this one situation. Um, if you type in foot fault or whatever, and it lists where all that is put in place in the manual. Um, a thing that happened recently this year, the new Mando rule that was put into effect, I think is a good rule that was put into effect. I think it was poorly explained, and it was very confusing to a lot of the people who read about it or who tried to understand it. And then that creates a lot of questions. So simplifications of the rules, where we're not changing them. They are still the same rules, but are better to, or are easier to understand, and then a better way to access them or find them, I think, is something that I would love to see prioritized as far as the competition side of it from the PDGA.
Any other specific issues or priorities that you want to champion?
Yeah, so the goal with Basket Bashers Disc Golf is to grow the sport of disc golf through women and children, because just looking at the dynamics and the demographics of disc golf, that is by far the lower end of it, right? Like where all the memberships are, it's primarily men, right? And not that there's anything wrong with that. Typically, men are the more competitive and have the more competition within themselves, to be able to play. But I think championing a way to grow the sport for women's disc golf. We have the women's global event that happens every year, which I think is a phenomenal event, but we don't have something like that for juniors, which I think would be very beneficial for kids to see kind of around the globe where they rank up in their age divisions, and then more female focused and junior focused tournaments as well, to really help drive that.
Okay. So regarding everything that we've already discussed, both the core competencies that I mentioned, the membership at large and events at large, but also some of these specifics that you just brought up, growing the sport among women and children, some work with the rules, adjustments to make in terms of their communication or their wording or their accessibility. What skills and experiences do you have personally, based on your background, based on your education, based on job history? What skills and experience do you have that will make you the right person to get this job done if elected to the board?
Sure. So, one, owning a disc golf store obviously helps with the knowledge of disc golf, right, and being involved in the local scenes. I'm also a self-proclaimed full-time tournament director, where we hold 15 to 20 tournaments this year. Next year we'll have close to 35 sanctioned PDGA events that I'll be running in over 5 states. So seeing that knowledge of not only my local demographic here in North Carolina, but also in the surrounding states, seeing how that works and seeing the growth for that, I think is hugely beneficial for me and for the PDGA to kind of have, I don't want to say a pioneer, but somebody who is specifically focused at least on one area in the southeast region of the country or whatever, an ambassador per se in that area, because different parts of the country obviously are in different shapes, right, for demographics. So I think that's hugely beneficial. Having the sports background, having the ability to work well with kids, I think bodes well for me with the junior candidacy, because I work very well with kids. I'm a good instructor. I'm a good coach, and so being able to simplify the game and break down the game to somebody who is not an adult and who can't wrap their head around certain portions of the game the same way that somebody who's more mature can, I think is extremely helpful. And then my wife and my daughter also play, and so I'm able to bounce ideas off of the two of them and say, hey, what do you think about this as a female or as a junior disc golfer? What do you think about this? How do you perceive this? What would you like to see in your game and things like that? And or in the tournaments around here that you play, and be able to get that feedback from them, locally. And then with Basket Bashers, we have a team all across the U.S. We have 27 players that we sponsor all over the country. And so to be able to bounce that kind of internationally off of everybody and say, hey, what do you think of this? What would you like to see here? And things like that. It's a small scale thing, but it's what I've been focusing on for the last several years. And I think that'll bode well for me if elected to the PDGA.
Sure. All right. Great stuff. Let's start to sort of land the plane here. I appreciated a moment ago how specific you were able to be with regard to some specific rules related, we'll call them problems, things that you would like to address and bring a specific solution for. So before I let you go, I want to open that up, a bigger picture, and I want to see if you might be able to identify for me one or more other very specific problems that you either already have some ideas, solutions for, or that you just identify the problem and it's something that you think you can be a part of the solution. Are there any other specific issues that you could identify? This is to help sort of set your candidacy apart from all of the others.
Is this in regards to the rules or in regards to the
No.
PDGA?
Broad strokes here. Just
Okay.
Any other specific issues, specific problem that you say, I also recognize that and I think I have an idea, or just I recognize that and I'd like to work on it. But I just, this is in part to sort of set your candidacy, set it a little bit unique, doing this with all the candidates. So wanted to open that up to you.
I think one thing that is the elephant in the room or the hot topic of disc golf right now is in the FPO division and then things like that. And so I've had a lot of people reach out to me since they see that growing the sport for women is part of my goal with candidacy, and what are your feelings on the transgender diversification into disc golf, right, and into the FPO division. And obviously that can be a very touchy subject. It can be a very sensitive subject for a lot of people. One thing that I like to see and that I'm hoping to be a part of is that the PDGA has elected a subcommittee of people, mainly from their medical committee that Elaine King had put in place, but as a subcommittee for gender-based divisions to be able to work on a solution for that. So that's definitely one thing that I'm very interested in, and seeing how that works, seeing how they go about that, and what their goals and focuses are on that. Another thing that I would really like to see is one thing that we find a lot of times with majors is that they tend to be in almost the same place every year, right? Like, and some of those are granted, right? Ledgestone will always be where Ledgestone is, right? DDO will always be where that is. But I think it would be good for states that have quality courses to be able to have the inclusion of, every year being able to have a Pro Tour stop or a major somewhere different where you don't have to travel, say, 4 to 6 hours to a local one. That way the local populace can see it. It can get more people in. It can show the cities and the parks in that area, like, hey, look how much money disc golf can bring in if you're willing to invest it into the parks, right? If you're willing to put more courses, more quality courses. We love our 4 or 5 acre 9-hole courses, but let's get a quality championship level course in here, right? And see what that can bring to the community. I think that that is something I would love to see the PDGA shift their focus towards and be able to bring more, I don't want to say rural, but more places that don't have that tournament caliber, that major caliber golf to it. That way you can see, like we played Cedar Hill in Nashville on our way up here to Worlds. So it was cool to watch the Music City Open and watch Garrett Gerthy and Chris Clemens and those guys play that course and then go out there and play it and kind of compare your game to theirs, right? So I think if you can do that in more places where more kids and more people who are newer into disc golf can really see what caliber these guys are at their own course, it'll help grow the sport a lot there.
All right, brother. Good stuff. We're about out of time. Any quick final comments before I let you go today?
Nothing on my part. Thank you so much for what you're doing. It's difficult as a board member to be able to get in front of the face of the members of the PDGA. So thank you for what you're doing. Obviously, you're using your platform here for a lot of good. Thank you for that, and thank you for reaching out. I appreciate it.
You bet. Logan Staton, 97730, running for PDGA Board of Directors 2022. Logan, thanks for your time. Best of luck in the upcoming election. Welcoming in now Laura Nagtegaal, PDGA number 44969 of Utrecht, the Netherlands. Computer science and psychology, your, we'll say, occupational background, something like that. And welcoming Laura in right now as a candidate for 2022 Board of Directors. I feel like I should mention this before I let you take it away, Laura. You are the returning member of the board seeking re-election during this particular term. So why don't you go ahead and finish telling us about yourself and about how you got into the game of disc golf?
Grant, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to speak and to present ourselves. I am indeed the one hoping to return board member. I'm also the only international candidate and the only woman candidate. So yeah, let's make it count. Me starting disc golf back in 2010 when I had a lull in my touring schedule. I asked my sister, who had been playing for a few years already, like, hey, that's sport, something golf, what you doing? Could you maybe come and watch it sometimes? She did me one better. She gave me a disc, which is still my go-to putter, my Pro Rhino, and she told me next Saturday we've got a game. tried to not finish last, and yeah, I was hooked. And that was basically how I got into it.
That's wonderful. All right. And based on your PDGA number, you joined the PDGA around about when?
I signed up at the event, but it took like 2-3 months to get it processed. But I wouldn't be surprised if Kat Allen and me pretty much signed up on the same day. But I dropped a few numbers, but I'm 5 digits, and I hope to see 7 digits in my lifetime.
All right. Well, let's dive right into a couple of questions, questions that every candidate is getting, so we can see all of your varying responses. First of all, the PDGA, as you know, has a couple of overarching mandates. Everything sort of in one way or another falls into these two categories. The first of those two categories is membership. Talking about growing the membership, talking about retaining existing members, and of course talking about serving those members with ever increasing services or quality. So starting right there, can you tell our listeners and our viewers, as a board member, how will you contribute to this overarching mandate through your ideas and your priorities?
Yeah, membership, that's only our most important asset, like even more important than events, because without members there's no events. Yeah, they're like the holy grail that we need to protect and embellish and polish every single day. Pre-COVID, we were already one of the faster growing sports in the world. And because of COVID, other sports facilities and sports just closed up. People started flocking to disc golf even more, like pretty much doubling rates year by year. And we managed to do it, but retention rates also shot up. And retention rate is what you talked about, people renewing the membership. And the way I read that is they get a good return of investment, like what are they going to get out of their membership? And that is where we need to put our focus. Attracting a new member, it's hard, but it's so much easier than retaining that member. Because somebody can just join and say, like, okay, I'll try it for a year, and nah, that wasn't for me. We need to make sure that they get hooked to what we have to offer, and they want to stay. And how do we do that? By giving them excellent service, by giving them what they want, what they need, what they don't know they need. Two of the biggest things that I see currently being the biggest dials in how to achieve that is, first of all, we have a certain amount of events and tournament directors and courses that events can be played on, and I'm talking sanctioned events. There's way more members than there's spots, so I do believe we need to absolutely protect our members to get first pick at obtaining those spots. There will still be people disappointed, but we've gone too far in our membership numbers to allow non-members to take the spots of dues-paying members. I don't know any other sport in the world that even allows it, but we did for 40 plus years for all the right reasons. But now it's time to turn the page, and you can see it with this year B-tier events having a current member requirement, and I hope that it gets expanded to C-tiers as well, because that's the bread and butter. That's where most of the players are. That's where most of the events are. So that's where the biggest difference can be made and should be made. The other big dial that we have is the services we supply the players and the tournament directors, the event staff, the volunteers. We've all seen that the ratings that once were 6 weekly and were crushed by hand. Now they're updated automatically every second Tuesday of the month. There's the tournament manager for all the tournament management services. Like, that event can be processed right after the last spot is done and be done with it. That's such a big help to the tournament directors. And recently implemented the event support team. Tournament director has an issue, call the number. There's someone on the phone waiting. That is so important, and I hope we will still expand it to even better protect our members, whether they're players or tournament directors. I personally think diversity, equity, and inclusion is a very important thing in it. Our membership is mostly US based, male, young, adult through middle-aged, and almost fully Caucasian. And there's no real need for that. There's no sport in the world that can or should only be played by people who have those traits. So we need to actively start inviting rather than condoning or tolerating population groups that are currently underrepresented. Women, BIPOC, our juniors who happen to be tomorrow's stars, our seniors, and people outside of the USA. Just saying, well, if you want to join, you may. That's yesterday. Today we need to change it into, what can I do? How can I get you to join, participate, and stay? And how can I get you to bring your friends? Excuse me. And whatever we find is whatever we find is how we manage to achieve that. We need to do that intentionally. Because if it's done lackadaisically or half-assed, we're not going to fully engage with the people that are currently not being engaged with. And the same goes for the global market that is ours, as the PDGA Board, the global organization. But we need to do more to acknowledge there's more than just the USA. And of course, I'd love worlds to be in Europe, Asia, or Australia, but that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. I'm talking about basic things like adding a USA time zone to streaming announcements, a country logo to the Worlds event that is held that year, or adding a country to the competitors or winners promo shot, basic things like that. And that applies to any other represented population group that we're currently not fully engaging with, whether that's women, BIPOC, queer people, neurodivergent people, people with different physical abilities, and indeed international players. And if we tackle these hurdles, then finally the fairways will be truly diverse, equitable, inclusive in the broader sense of the word. And growth will be even larger than what we're currently achieving. And most important, our most important asset will finally be sustainable and future-proof. And yeah, that's how I would like to do that.
Very interesting comments. You touched just a little bit on some things related to events, and as that is sort of that second primary mandate of the PDGA, the creation of events, the sustaining and support of those events, growing them in number, growing them in terms of their quality, all of those kinds of things. Because that is such an important mandate in and of itself, do you have any additional thoughts when it comes to what you want to accomplish as a board member with regard to events in general?
Aside from what I already mentioned with the number of spots, I want us to also be able to do more to facilitate tournament directors and staff by even expanding further our tournament manager, our event support team, our educational and training facilities, so that our tournament directors, who are in fact our feet on the ground, because from Appling, Georgia, we cannot manage every single event. We wish we could, but we just can't. The tournament directors are our intermediates. We need to make them do their job at the best of our abilities, and through training and supplying better services, that's definitely going to be easier to obtain. And I also think that earning options for tournament directors and possibly staff needs to be added to that equation, because there's only so many extra miles volunteer staff can and will go to make ends meet, as demands and expectations rightfully rise further. So we need to do that. And on the highest profile events, I actually think we need to raise the bar even more, both in terms of what the event should supply, but also who gets to qualify. And why is that, you ask? Well, there's a big multinational ready to drop 50 million on us. Are they going to do that if they see me flanked by 300-foot drive to then scramble for bogey? Or will they do that when they see Kristen and Paige battling out in a dramatic fashion in picture-perfect settings and circumstances? Well, I know which of the two scenarios I would put my money on. And that big sponsor deal will lift the sport to a much higher level immediately. And of course, the big events and athletes will benefit from that. But even more so, we as an organization can start doing even more for our grassroots level events and players. And those players, they will be tomorrow's idols.
Are there any other? We've covered an awful lot of ground thus far, and that's a very good thing. Are there any other problems that you'd like to solve, or priorities that you'd like to champion that we haven't already covered, that you would like to mention with regard to the work you hope to do as a continuing member of the board?
Not necessarily different things, but I'm making it more of my personal mission to, with whatever I do as a board member, my 3 focus points will, and I've already mentioned them, be diversity, equity, and inclusion, globalization, and raising the bar on those high profile events. And we will have, as a board, we will get stuff thrown at us, stuff that we didn't think of. It will happen, and as we keep growing, our challenges will keep growing. But in the back of my mind, I will always have these 3 personal priorities in making the sport better, the sport bigger, and attracting and retaining with a smile on their face as many players as can be. And I do believe those 3 are very pivotal in helping achieve that.
Indeed. A final question, by way of giving you sort of this opportunity to pitch yourself in asking for the votes of our members. Setting yourself uniquely apart, what skills, experiences, or perspectives do you bring to the board that make you a unique member of the board and an effective member of the board? Or to put it much more bluntly, why should voters choose to re-elect you?
Well, because of my smile, obviously. No, seriously. In the current setup of the board, if I were to be re-elected, having already served pretty much 2 full terms, I'd be the longest serving board member. That needs to count for something. Over the years, I've been a member of 7 of the PDGA's committees. One of them doesn't exist anymore, the ratings committee. So I've gotten a very explicit and intimate look in the various parts of our kitchen, our ingredients, our recipes, and yeah, that obviously gives me more background knowledge than someone who would just be joining for the first time. Next to that, I've got 4 years of experience as the Euro Tour manager, and I've been the PDGA Europe interim admin for 2 years. Yeah, I know things, and I've done things, and from my personal job, what I would bring to the table is being self-employed in industry where anticipation, a clear vision, and fast and accurate problem solving are essential. I would bring that to the table like I've done for the last 6 years, and I hope to continue doing that for the next 3. And yeah, if I'm elected, I'd be the only non-USA based board member again, or still. I'm a woman, one of 2, next to Liat Sinagini, and a queer woman at that, mostly Caucasian. So I can explicitly talk on behalf of many of the underrepresented member groups out of first-hand experience that will be necessary to be done and continue to be done. And as a board member, I think I can achieve that better than being on the outside with one of the other 110,000 members.
Well, before I wrap us up, for simple lack of time, Laura, are there any final thoughts that you want to leave us with?
Thank you very much for providing this platform, and to myself and the other 12 candidates and the 5 PDGA Europe candidates who have their own election. I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you for wanting to join, and hope you will join. See you on the other side. Thank you very much.
Laura Nagtegaal, PDGA number 44969, running for election this year as a PDGA board member. Thanks once again, Laura.
Thank you.
Can you hear that?
Yes, I can. With the kiddos in the background, joining us now, Joseph Brown, PDGA number 41057 of Centennial, Colorado, a sales team manager by trade and a candidate for the PDGA Board of Directors. Joseph, thanks for joining us today. Let's finish out your bio. Why don't you tell us when and how you discovered disc golf, why it's a passion, those sorts of things. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. You could probably call me a Kansas City native, and then sort of transplanted in Colorado in the Denver suburbs. But I discovered disc golf in Kansas City. I think Rosedale up top. If anybody knows, it was the first course I played with my older brother, and it's a passion. I mean, there's something special and cool, and you can't even really put it into words about watching a frisbee fly, whether it's, an ultimate disc or a beach disc or, anything it's just fun to watch them fly.
So let's dive right in with our limited time and learn a little bit about your candidacy and why it is that you are running for a position on the PDGA Board of Directors here in 2022. As you are probably aware, the PDGA has several overarching core competencies, and I've been summarizing them this way. One mandate is membership, growing membership, retaining membership, and providing services to those members. And the other focal point is on the competition and the events themselves. Again, increasing access to those events, improving quality, and supporting those events. Also, increasing the overall number of events. So let's hit each of those kind of in turn. First of all, concerning membership. As a board member, what are some of your ideas when it comes to increasing membership, retaining those members, and serving those members? And as a board member, how will you contribute to this objective?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I've been a PDGA member since 2009. The Pro Worlds came through Kansas City, and Avery Jenkins won it that year. And I went to the Fly Mart and got Avery to sign a disc. I got Ken Climo was there. He signed a disc, and it was just cool to see all the enthusiasm and everybody milling around in this hotel conference room and so excited about talking to other people who play Frisbee. And that ignited in me a little bit, and like seeing the organization side of it instead of just it being a recreational activity. You go out into a park and you do it. And we discovered it. I think my brother was just driving around and saw the baskets and wanted to know what it was. So then we started playing. But I think like that's the way that people used to find it. I think more people are finding it via social media, via media, the Disc Golf Network. I remember I used to pay for discgolfplanet.tv, if you ever remember that, with it's like Dave Greenwell and Crazy John Brooks. It was awesome. But I think right now like anytime you hear interviews from the touring pros, they talk about how difficult the field is getting and how like stiff the competition is right now. I think to increase membership, we're sort of alienating the people who have started in the last 2 or 3 years. Like, you know, for them to go join a competition or a weekend tournament, they have to put in a lot of hours to get good before they even feel comfortable in playing in a tournament. And I think there's a lot of ways that if we really want to increase membership, we can have events that don't focus so much around individual performance or even performance like competition in the way that it is right now. Getting, you know, I was looking a little bit at cash on hand that the PDGA has, and that's pretty flush right now. Using some of that money for grant programs for schools or for education programs to get more kids involved from an early age. When you look at like recruitment, retention, reactivation that's used in the hunting, fishing, outdoor community, it doesn't always work because most of the time it ends up when you put on a recruitment event or a retention event, it ends up being the families that are already involved, right? If you want to go put on a 12-year-old fishing seminar, when you show up, it's mostly all the parents are already fishing, right? They already know how to do it. They're just bringing their kids to an event where they might get a free tackle box or like a free rod and some training. And you're not really reaching a different audience than the people who are already doing it. And I think if we really want to grow membership, we run some matching grants or some donations to schools. We could start with high schools. I was looking last night. I think the average, and this is not scientific, but the average high school in most states is on like 30 acres, which to me, you know, there's a lot of it but with parking lots and soccer fields and whatever. But, you know, every big high school has usually a soccer field, a baseball field, a football field, a track. Why not have a 9-hole course or even a 6-hole course or a 3-hole course or a basket, right? Somewhere that we can start recruiting in high school and getting access to be a little bit easier. Like, you know, you could probably hear my kids. If I didn't love disc golf or there's something they want to do that I don't love, they want to ask me to do it. I got to carve out 20 minutes, 30 minutes to drive there, right? Round trip, whatever it is. But if it's at their school, I have to go pick them up anyways. And you lower the barrier to entry if you get a couple baskets there and you can throw around. I'm getting a little rambly, but I think the other thing too is with individual competition, there's not a lot of community and it becomes difficult, and you really have to get people who are outgoing and have the guts to show up to a tag night or a local club tournament by themselves to try and meet people. But if we were to create more of a team aspect. You can build a lot more camaraderie and get people to enjoy the sport together and have a vested interest in the success of the other person, instead of, nobody ever is going to cheer that a putt doesn't go in. But when you're playing in a tournament and you want to win, when the guy in your card misses a putt, you're not upset about it, right? If you're neck and neck. And I played at the University of Kansas on the club team, and that was really formative and created some bonds that, you can only get in a team setting. And so, yeah, that would be the two bullet points: is creating more opportunities for team sports. Maybe it's doubles, maybe it's 4-person high school teams that travel around 6A, just like you would in a ball golf tournament or, soccer, whatever.
Those are really interesting ideas. And you mentioned one in particular that is sort of the kind of thing that a board would implement. And that was your idea earlier about creating or expanding a grant program. What other things can you do as a board member that would help to make some of these ideas a reality? Does that question make sense?
It does, yeah. I think somebody's upset about the temperature of their eggs behind me. Yeah, I mean, there's something about the formality of being on a board, and I've been on a couple different boards in my short professional career, but there's a difference if I just call in to Discraft or Innova or whatever it is and just say, hey, I'm Joe Schmo, right? They're not going to put that much weight behind it. But if I'm able to call in with the approval of PDGA membership and the board and, do some boots on the ground work, just reaching out and building industry contacts, it carries a little bit more weight for people to actually answer the phone and talk to you and be open to a conversation if they know that you have the backing of another group of people. And being in sales and sales manager, sales trainer, like, I have no problem doing that work and making those, not cold calls, but, making the calls and doing the outreach to just open up the door for possibilities and see what other people would contribute and see what they wouldn't.
Let's expand the conversation just a little bit more into something that we haven't mentioned yet that you consider to be a major issue that needs attention, or a major priority that you have personally that you want to focus on as best you can if a member of the board. Is there something that we haven't mentioned yet that you would really like to talk about because you feel like it's of vital importance?
I think access is probably the biggest one. If you go out on a course now, you're going to see some backups really at any time of the day, depending on where you are. But most people are seeing the highest number of participants on each course than we've ever seen. And when I was playing in like 2005, before I joined the PDGA, it was rare that you would ever have a backup unless it was, maybe on a Saturday afternoon on the most popular course in town. And it's not like a lot of people want to mimic what traditional golf has done and try and steal or borrow things from traditional golf and bring it over to disc golf, but I don't think that's actually what we want to do. If that was actually the case, people say, disc golf is a great way because it's inexpensive. It's just like ball golf, but it's inexpensive, and you don't have to get a tee time, and you don't have to wear a collared shirt. If that's truly how we're looking at it, then the end goal of getting people into disc golf would eventually be graduating them to traditional golf, right? But that doesn't really make sense, and I have no desire to play traditional golf. So I think reframing the marketing and the branding of the PDGA to be its own unique organization is vital, and increasing access. Like if we're sitting on, I think it was $8 million, right? If the PDGA is sitting on that kind of money, there's so many opportunities. Why don't we ship a disc golf basket out to, elementary schools with 2 or 3 putters, get in with PE programs and education directors on how to teach kids to putt, right? Send them home with a mini, whatever it is. Right now, the perception of the PDGA is that you only need to do it to save your $5 or $10 when you play in a tournament, right? And it doesn't need to be that way. I think expanding what the Disc Golf Foundation does, the 501c3 arm, would be pivotal in actually changing the way people look at the PDGA.
Lost you there for just a second, but I think we've got you back. You were talking about expanding the foundation arm, and that would be pivotal. So let's kind of begin to wind things down just a little bit and give you kind of a chance to sort of pitch yourself once and for all. What makes you a unique candidate for the PDGA Board of Directors? What do you bring that you feel like no one else brings in exactly the way that you do it? It could be skills, it could be experience, it could be any of a number of things. So take a moment and tell our viewers and our listeners basically why they should vote for you and what it is that makes you stand out.
Yeah. When you look at there's an easy and a hard way to say it. I'm going to try the hard way to say this where I don't step on toes. When you look at the board right now, there's a lot of experience, and I can't say even for a moment that I have that experience based on the profiles of who's on the board right now. But I do have youthful enthusiasm because I'm younger. I'll be 33 in a couple months, and I think the sport needs different perspectives in leadership to make sure that all angles are being looked at and viewed. And being in sales for the last 10 years, working at a high growth software startup, you learn a whole lot about change is the only constant and how to scale a team and how to grow something and what works, what doesn't, having a bias for action and going to try new things. And I think we're in the perfect time to do that and to listen to everybody who's a PDGA member. And like I said, looking at the PDGA not just as a tournament organization, getting it to be, a global brand where there's many different ways for people to enter the fold. And we need to make sure that the value props of joining the PDGA, why would somebody give us money? I think we can do a better job of cleaning that up. Like I said, if we work with local land managers, you could do a conservation easement on a piece of property and put a couple baskets on it. Maybe you can't play it the whole year. Maybe you can only play it in the summer. But there's a bunch of different ways that we can get the name out there. And all it is you put up a sign and say, the PDGA helps sponsor this course. Doesn't matter how much money it was. If we can have a sign there, the people know when I'm sending my money off to Big Brother in the sky, that's the PDGA, what's actually happening. Because right now, I think a lot of people just think it's helping to pay for the tournament, or maybe it's paying the tournament director when you join the PDGA. But yeah, just helping everybody understand what the money's going towards and giving people a tangible result or something to look at of why they're spending their money every year to join or renew.
All right. Food for thought. Joseph Brown, 41057, running for PDGA Board of Director in 2022. Best of luck, Joseph. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. It's fun.
Welcoming in Jordan Adams, PDGA number 144078 of Asheville, North Carolina, USA. A background in hospitality, customer service, and more recently, information technology. Jordan, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
I'd like you to kind of complete your bio for us, if you don't mind, by telling us a little bit specifically about what got you into disc golf, how long you've been playing, when you joined the PDGA, all of that good stuff we love to talk about.
Sure. Lifelong athlete. Played ball golf my entire life. It was the first sport I really picked up. And back in 2020, February of 2020, a friend of mine that I was working with at the time introduced me to disc golf. Immediately fell in love. Second day I ever played, February 19th, 2020, I got my first ace. It was complete fluke. I didn't know what I was doing. I threw a 10-speed, or I guess it's 10-speed. Yeah, Monarch. Actually, I have it right here. It's up here. 10-speed Monarch at a 110-foot hole, forehand flick, and just nailed it. The only witness was a 10-year-old on his bicycle. Got to take a picture with him. It was awesome. Fell in love with the game immediately, and from there it kind of snowballed. The community just really sucked me in. I was going to weeklies 3-4 times a week, just going to different courses, learning the game. Ended up becoming a board member this past August for the Western North Carolina Disc Golf Association, which is a very active and long-lasting club. We've been around for 20 years, and was voted in as vice president a couple months ago. So it's been a very fast and very fun disc golf life so far.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's dive right into our questions, given our limited time together. Let's talk more about what you bring to the possibility of being a PDGA board member. So, in broad terms, here at the PDGA, our mandates are our members and our events at a national and international scale. So when it comes to our membership, we're talking about growing the total number of members and improving member services, retaining members, that sort of thing. And when it comes to the competition and events aspect, it's sort of some similar mandates with regard to attracting players, making those events more accessible and of a higher and higher quality. Let's go with the membership question first. Can you talk about what your ideas and your priorities are when it comes to membership in general, increasing members, retaining members? Talk about how best to serve our members and what you would do as a board member with regard to that objective.
Sure. So in my statement that you can read on the PDGA website, one of the things that I really harped on was increased support of local clubs. It really starts from the ground up, and that's how you really snowball things like larger organizations, larger competitions, especially with the PDGA. You know, PDGA can be a little intimidating for newer players. You come in to a tournament that you've never played a tournament style golf before. You're getting a rating. You're playing against people that are, most of the time way more experienced than you. You might not understand the divisions and all that, but, getting those local clubs, being able to like kind of learn the game, learn the style, getting in with those smaller organizations may make people a little more comfortable getting into a large organization like the PDGA. PDGA is a global organization, but with my experience in the local club, like if it wasn't for my local club, I would not be in the PDGA at all. Being able to play with those players that are more skilled than you, learning from them and learning just the different facets of the sport itself, and seeing what the PDGA can actually do for the growth of the sport. I wouldn't have learned that without the smaller clubs. So that is something that I would really focus on, is that additional support, the additional, whether it be social media push, whether it be financing, whether it be just in general, just, hey, let us put our logo on your local event to get more people involved, more people excited about the sport. That would definitely be a very big focus for me. Another focus would be the youth programs. That's something that we are very heavily involved with in Western North Carolina. And a lot of those we do try to offer up, instead of like necessarily like prizes like a bag or a disc, we offer up a tournament entry into a sanctioned tournament. So whether or not these, younger kids are PDGA members, they get to experience it for winning whatever tournament or whatever league sanctioned, or like high school, middle school league that they go into, to let them see the bigger picture and like what we're kind of all reaching for is the growth of the sport. And to me, a lot of that does start with local clubs and the youth. that's kind of what I'm running on.
Okay. With regard to events, there are a number of issues related to events that have to do with the supply on the market right now of events. They have to do with accessibility, getting more and an increasingly diverse crowd to play in those events. And there, of course, always are the questions of making sure that the events are of a certain quality, regardless of what tier they are. What are your thoughts, potential contributions when it comes to the PDGA's overseeing of our events on a global scale?
On a global scale, it would, networking would be the biggest thing. Being in the service industry for the last 20 years and being in the technology field now, I feel like being able to expand my connections, being able to reach out and get sponsorships, be able to just reach out to as many people as I possibly can. Not just in my professional field, but also the people that I've met throughout my travels and volunteer work with different disc golf organizations. Just getting as many people involved as possible. The growth of the sport is really going to be the catalyst for that, to really get more people involved, because ultimately what I've seen, not just on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, not just in PDGA events, but events in general, is manpower. And the more people you have involved, the more people you have that are willing to volunteer. And there's not many people that I know that have volunteered or been involved in the sport that haven't just immediately latched onto it and at least want to help out with one event. And you get 10 new players, 2 of them want to volunteer for an event. That's you got a 20% success rate at that point.
What can be done to increase the number of volunteers?
Just asking. That's really it. You've got all these, there's huge clubs all over the place in every major city, and even in small cities. Like, I live in Nashville. Our city's tiny. We're a huge tourist town, but we have a huge club. We have almost 400 active members and another 5,000 on our Facebook page. You just got to ask. You got to be genuine. You got to let people know what they want. And it's like, maybe, the club can offer up something a little, like, hey, we're going to offer snacks or drinks or a disc or whatever, like, obviously discs are hard to come by nowadays, but, offer an incentive that's not going to break the bank and, get people out, get people enjoying the sport and becoming more active in it.
Well, you've talked about emphasizing support of local clubs. You've talked about expanding efforts to reach junior disc golfers. You've now spoken a little bit about trying to increase volunteerism within the sport. Are there any other issues or priorities you want to make sure that those getting ready to vote in these elections know that you are going to champion if you are elected to the board?
I mean, I'm sure there's 1,000 things that are going to come up that I can't think of right now, but really those specific things, local clubs, volunteerism, and youth programs, that's kind of my that's my platform that I'm running on. Mostly because I feel like those 3 issues are going to be the biggest thing that's going to grow the sport. It's going to get more people involved in the sport, and it's going to continue the sport. I don't want it to just be a fad. I want this, obviously the pandemic was a huge, boom for the game. A lot of people were like, oh, well, what can I do? It's like, oh, I can go outside on a disc golf course. And it's the only thing I can do for the last 2 years. I don't want it to I don't want to see 2 years of boom and then just go away. I want these people that have started to pick up the game, these people that are now learning about the game, with the professional tournaments being shown on ESPN, with Disc Golf Pro Scene, Disc Golf Pro Tour, Gateway Media, all these companies that are coming out and putting out these huge YouTube videos with millions of views. Like, I don't want it to just be a fad. I want to see this sport to continue to grow, and I want as many people involved as possible. And that's kind of where my mind's at.
What needs to be fixed at the PDGA right now, and what might you do to try to fix it?
That's a tough question. I don't know if I actually have an answer for that. I've personally been very happy with pretty much. I could go into some very specifics. Couple of tournaments that I've not been happy with. A couple of oversights on things that have happened during major tournaments, even minor, like C tiers, B tiers, stuff that, I would like to see change, but they're all very specific events, and I don't think it's really.
Would those things
I don't
perhaps,
think it's worth sticking my neck out for.
well, would those things have been fixed due to something like better training for those running the event? Could they have been fixed by having access to some kind of a tool, technology, or otherwise that wasn't available? What about thinking of it in those kinds of terms?
I think a little bit more of an oversight and a little bit more of an input from the PDGA, or I wouldn't say input from the PDGA, input from players to the PDGA about tournaments. Even if it was something just as like, you're going to get a low response rate, but just an email that's sent out by the PDGA after a tournament, a sanctioned tournament, says, what did you like about this tournament? What did you not like? What could have been done better? I'm not going to mention names or tournament names because, I'm not trying to stick my neck out, but there was a recent tournament that water was not provided, and that's kind of a big thing, especially in the middle of summer. And that was something that was very much harped on social media and in the disc golf discussion groups that I'm a part of. And if I was there, I would have done something about it, but unfortunately I was not there. But, just small things like that. It's not even small things. I mean, we're talking about major discrepancies that could happen during these tournaments that, might get overlooked because there's not that outreach to players themselves. And it's kind of up to the TD to kind of report those things. And sometimes it's the TD that's making the mistakes.
Understood. Well, with the few moments that we have left here today, I want to give you an opportunity to try to set yourself apart as a unique candidate in the eyes of all those who will be voting here starting on the 1st of July. We'll kind of start here and then I'll let you take it. Your candidate statement mentions your 2-decade career in the hospitality industry. For those that aren't sure what that means, we're talking about restaurants and bars and things like that. You say, quote, you garnered many skills that extend into the disc golf scene. Can you elaborate on exactly what those skills are and how those skills and experiences, and for that matter, any other skills and experiences, set you apart as a candidate to vote for in the upcoming elections?
Sure. A lot of my career in the restaurant industry was, it was majority in the kitchen, which is inventory management, personnel management, scheduling, just in general problem solving. It's something that you have to be quick on your feet. You have to be quick in your mind. You have to be able to make the right decision at the right time. And there's very, very little room for error. So you just, in general, intuitive nature came with that. In the front of house, I was mostly service staff and bar management. I did do a little bit of general management, but that was mostly on, it was short-lived. But in that time, the skills that I developed in communicating and interpersonal skills, it allows me to understand how people work very quickly. I have, like I said, intuitive nature with people in general, and I'm able to really just kind of, seems in my mind, make the right decision the first time. Like I said, I'm very new to disc golf. I've been playing for about 2.5 years now. I have been very, very heavily involved in the sport since I started. I'm the caretaker for Richmond Hill here in Nashville, which is probably the most played course in North Carolina, one of the most played courses. But it's something that I've become very passionate about, and it's something that I've actually made a complete career change to focus more time on. And I feel like the PDGA Global Board is the next step into making that my life's passion.
All right, then. Have you any final thoughts that you want to make sure you take this opportunity to get in front of those getting ready to vote before I let you go?
My email is always open. If you have any questions that I haven't answered, feel free to catch me up.
All right. Jordan Adams. I've got a fly in my face. Jordan Adams, PDGA number 144078, running for 2022 PDGA Board of Directors. Jordan, thanks for spending some time with us today. And as I've said to everybody else thus far, best of luck when voting opens here on the 1st of July.
Thanks so much, Grant.
We're now joined by John Belty, PDGA number 11582. Just almost in that 4-digit club for John, out of Bixby, Oklahoma, where he acts as a credit union manager by day and a disc golf impassioned player and supporter by all of the rest of his waking hours. John, thanks for joining us. Why don't you finish your introduction off there for us and let us know in particular how you got into the game of disc golf.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So I have been playing disc golf since about 1994. I actually played a lot of ball golf, I call it ball golf, in college, and just went out with some friends at church. They were going to play frisbee golf. I'm like, what is that? Boomer Lake in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Shout out to Stillwater. Just loved it. And, I was better at it than ball golf, and it's a lot cheaper than ball golf. So used to be a lot cheaper than ball golf. Now not so much maybe, but just kind of kept playing ever since. I've loved it and gotten more involved with it. And been going ever since 1994. Became a PDGA member in 1995, you can see I have 196 career events. I do tour as much as I can on weekends and local events. I'm going to Worlds. Tim Selinsky this year. I was in Vegas. Took second in Vegas this year. It's hard to beat Patrick Brown. He's a pretty good player. So I still do a lot of touring. And I have my daughter is a up-and-coming FPO player who's doing more touring this year as we can get her out there and get in tournaments. So.
All right, sir. Well, let's dive right into things here. Membership and events. That's a great way to sum up the two primary core competencies of the PDGA. So let's go with membership first. Attracting new members, retaining existing members, and serving those members with a high degree of quality. What are your ideas when it comes to solving these, I don't want to call them problems, but, continuing or improving in these areas? And as a board member, how can you contribute?
Well, I'll just relate it to, I'm an administrator of our local Tulsa club, Tulsa Disc Sports Association. I'm also the treasurer. And we've kind of had that challenge here to grow the membership. Same thing, you want to grow the membership, retain the membership, and because more membership leads to more things. You can do, bigger things, better things, all that kind of, as the membership grows. Some examples of things that we've done over the last few years as I've been treasurer, we tried to show people, how the money is being spent. Here in Tulsa and the Tulsa County, the city and the county do not have money in the budget for disc golf. We're lucky if they mow the grass, but we try and partner with them to make sure they do that. But any disc golf equipment in the ground, tee pad signs, baskets, is all donated by the Tulsa Disc Sports Association. It's been that way since the inception. And you're familiar with Tulsa. You know how many courses we have in the Tulsa area. There's a lot of them, and they require a lot of maintenance. The last 2 years, we've put new baskets in 3 courses, new tee pads, new signs. Really try to tie that to the membership so they can see, this is where the money's going, and communicate that via website. And when we are out running TDSA events, hey, how do you guys like the new equipment or the upgrades or the improvements that we've made? This is where your money goes. So communication, listening and feedback. We had done a lot of improvements on some of the bigger courses here in town, Hakey Creek and Hunter Park and some of the other courses. Chandler Park is one of the favorite courses in Tulsa. It's it's a shorter course. You may be familiar with Chandler Park, being from this area, but got a couple of courses just courses are busy all the time, and we run minis out there all the time, and people are like, hey, we spend a lot of money in TDSA. When are we going to get new equipment out here? So we just there's 2 courses. We just put in 18 new baskets, listening to the membership out there just the beginning of the year, right at the end of the last year, beginning of this year. Made some course improvements working with the county. Really try to communicate, listen, get feedback from the membership. And our memberships have actually grown and are still growing, and retaining those memberships every year. Just really trying to show people it's more than just, hey, when you're going to get a disc and something that says you're a TDSA member. It's really you're supporting the disc golf community in Tulsa, and tying that and giving visual and actually people that you can that will respond and listen to you. And we've been successful the last few years in growing the membership. So it's the same thing on a national level. People want to know that they're being heard, see where their money's going, be able to provide feedback, just look for ways to improve that, for the PDGA. So.
Well, the other, and you touched on this just a little bit, the other overarching core competency of the PDGA is events. And we're talking about increasing access, perhaps by something as simple as making more of those events. But we're also talking about making sure those events are of a high quality and making sure that they are available to all, etc. How can you contribute to that ongoing area of focus if you were to be elected a member of the PDGA board?
Well, for me, I like to look at things and see, hey, is it good? Can we make it better? Even if it's good, how can we make it better? I'm going to give you an example. Again, I said my daughter is a FPO player, the DGPT. One of those areas that I'd like to see some changes in the women's fields. I know that they're working on it, but the women's fields are hard to get in. They're full. I mean, you got 60 women and capped in all these fields. I'm sure the women would like to play for bigger purses, just like the men. Ways that we can grow that field. I really believe right now you could probably fill a field of 80 to 100 easy. Maybe for the women's side, if you to try and find ways to bring that field up to 120, you have an advanced division that's the top 20 advanced players, to give them an invitation to apply. So you have 120 men, you have 120 women, but that gives you a field that grooms the women, introduces them to the DGPT atmosphere, how things are run, also and provides you kind of a way to cultivate that next generation of FPO player. But that's one change I'd like to see as far as that goes. The player ratings, my daughter struggles with the player ratings because, like I said, she's a growing disc FPO player. She's playing above 900, probably 9 out of 10 rounds, but her rating is 890. It takes a while to move that. I mean, it's going up, but it takes a while to move that number. Right now you can't sign up. I mean, if you're not a 900 rated FPO player, when that DGPT field opens with the slots that are left, you're probably not going to get in. Maybe if we go to instead of using the 12-month rating, we go to the six-month rating for sign-ups to try and, capture those people that are playing, well now versus, the 12-month, maybe I was in 750 back here and now I'm like 900. So, just lots of different ways to try and grow and expand that field and to help the ones that are active and want to get in and be able to compete. Hopefully that answers your question. Mm-hmm. It's just one idea as far as that goes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, let's do this. Let's think in terms of maybe any issues that we haven't yet discussed. So I'll phrase it this way. Are there any problems that you would like to solve, or are there any priorities that you have that you would like to champion, things that maybe we haven't discussed yet? These are things that you would like to focus on if you find yourself elected to the PDGA Board of Directors?
Well, again, some of the examples I've given are things that I
They
am
certainly
passionate
are.
about. Like I said, I play and my daughter plays. It's very important to me, and I think that's a very large untapped, potential in the disc golf world is the FPO and the female players. It's just a matter of being able to make it better for them and to get them encouragement to play. And I mean, I think with the response that we've seen for the DGPT events this year, and even A tiers, has just been amazing from women. I've seen my daughter play in events with so many women this year. It's been more than I've ever seen. So really growth in the FPO, making it better, making it more attractive for them, just like it is for the men. And just making the PDGA more relatable to the members and helping the members see, this is the benefit of being a PDGA member. It's not just that we get to play tournaments. This is what it's doing for us as a group, and making the sport better. And two, I give an example. You need, I don't want to say qualified. You need qualified and very trustworthy people to run any organization. Local clubs, especially you find that over the years if you've done it long enough that, trustworthy people, dependable people, people that want to get stuff done. They're like priceless to the disc golf community. They're the ones that are going to be full of ideas, help get things done, and manage your club and manage your organization, help manage your organization and keep it moving in the right direction. Those people are, there's no value you can put on those types of people because it just takes one person to, totally wreck a club sometimes. So very important to put the right people in the right positions, people that know what they're doing, so we've been fortunate with our local club. We've got a really good group of solid people. So,
well, on that note, John, what skills or experiences or perspective do you feel like you have that makes you a unique option for the voters to consider and makes you a valuable asset potentially to the PDGA board?
Well, and some of this is in my bio. I have a finance degree. I have an MBA. I've been in finance and lending and banking most of my adult life, so very familiar with spreadsheets, balance sheets, all those things that make a company run, money. I'm the treasurer of the Tulsa Disc Sports Association, so safekeeping of funds, those types of things. I think my knowledge and expertise in the financial area would be very important working on a board, because you're overseeing a millions of dollar budget as far as the operations of the organization. So you want, again, somebody that knows, if you're providing oversight, you want somebody that knows what they're overseeing, able to interpret what they're overseeing, identify any problems that could be there with what they're overseeing. So understanding of financial statements, operation of a business, those types of things are what I bring to the table as far as a board member, and dependability, trustworthiness. So those are the things I think that I bring to the table of financial knowledge and background.
Okay, interesting stuff. Here's a sort of a final unique question for you as we begin to wind up our time here, John. You mentioned before that you're from Tulsa, Oklahoma. With the growth recently in PDGA membership, there are a lot of now PDGA members that may not be aware of the disc golf history that Tulsa has. Tulsa, once upon a time, was the host of majors, PDGA majors, the host of other big, well-known, nationally known touring events and things like that. but that was some time ago, and one could argue Tulsa has kind of, I don't think the passion for those that live there has waned, but Tulsa has sort of fallen off the map, so to speak, just a little bit. And now part of your bio talks about how you'd like to bring Tulsa back. So what I'm wondering are the lessons that you have learned, seeing what was successful before, the lessons that you're learning now as you're trying to regain traction. I'm wondering about those kinds of lessons that you can then turn to apply to the PDGA at large.
So again, going back to people are very important to the organization, like the local, and even the local clubs. People are what drive the engine, basically. As far as the club and even bringing events, I mean, Tulsa's. I think we're in a position now where we can actually host national events. We've been working towards that. As I said, over the last 2.5, 3 years, we've been working on improving our courses, making them, redesigning the courses to where they would be, good for a national event. Expanding the courses, we've got new courses coming online, and like I said, we're redesigning some. We've got new equipment in several of the courses. So that's one of the things that we're talking about now as a group. Okay, let's start to, what bids do we want to put out there? But again, you got to have the people. You got to have volunteers. You got to have money. And you got to have just the drive and somebody that can take it and run with it, and the vision to do it. We've been building that in Tulsa, and hopefully within the next few years you're going to see some big things coming out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. With that being said, did I answer your question? There was another part.
Well, no, you're on the right track. Sure. At the PDGA level, though, how do you, serving as a board member and working with the PDGA staff, how do you make that happen on a global scale? How do you get those people into position, or attract those people, or equip those people? What kinds of things do you feel like you can help to implement?
A lot of it, I mean, it could be people that a lot of things happen by people that you meet and talk to. Same in my job. If I find a good person that, if I find somebody that does a really good job, at their job, I tell them, hey, I'm a manager, give me a call, I've got a position open. Finding those people, recruiting those people, and, knowing what you need. We need more than just the board. We need more than just the state coordinators, the PDGA, people that work for the PDGA. We need, feet on the ground. One of the things that we've set up in the local club is a volunteer. We've revamped our website. We have a volunteer sign-up page. So we have a volunteer page for every course. If you live around Hakey Creek and you want to sign up and volunteer when we have work out there, give us your info. Fill out, put it on here. Same thing for every course. So that way we know we have a group of people we can pull from, a crew. If we got, today they were out at Hakey pouring a T-pad, so there was a group of guys out there. So a lot of that's, recruiting people, putting the notice out. We need people for these things, and having a pool to draw from. I don't know if the PDGA necessarily does that. I know, like Jason Schweike is our state coordinator. He has a good group of people that he turns to, but I don't know, and he's pretty familiar with people in Oklahoma City, everywhere he goes. So he's got his own personal network. I don't know how formal it is, whether it's hey, I keep a list on my PDGA page or whatever, but just a list of those people, and those are the people that we can not only count on, but grow and cultivate to grow the organization down the road and serve the organization maybe on a board position or in a paid position down the road as well. So,
all right. Well, this is John Belty, PDGA 11582, running for to be a member of the PDGA Board of Directors. Any final thoughts before I let you go today, John?
I don't think so, Grant. I appreciate your time, and vote for me. I would appreciate your vote. I know a lot of people out there. A lot of people know me. I'll give you one interesting thing about me as well. A lot of people know me when they see me because I actually throw with both hands. I actually can play right-handed or left-handed. I throw 400 feet right-handed, 400 feet left-handed. I putt right-handed, I putt left-handed. So I get a lot of head turns when I'm out there with new people. We'll be like 5 holes in, they're like, did you just throw that left-handed or right-handed, or so there's not a lot of people out there. I've seen some videos of Eagle, he's been experimenting with it and that kind of thing. I'm like, I've been doing that for a long time, man. So if you see me out there, you never know which direction it's coming from. So
all right, good stuff. Thanks again for the time today, John, and
Yep.
We'll see you down the road.
All right, Grant, appreciate it.
Welcome to Anthony Davis, number 147833. That's a PDGA number, by the way. Dalton, Georgia, with a BA in Business Administration, a stay-at-home dad, working on this opportunity to join the PDGA Board of Directors. Anthony, thanks for joining us today from on the road in your case. And why don't you go ahead and kind of finish that bio out for us, especially when did you find the game of disc golf and join the PDGA and discover that this was a passion?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. So I discovered the PDGA. Well, let's back up. I discovered disc golf back in high school. Played a couple times with some friends. Didn't think much of it until COVID hit, and then found the disc golf course, and I've been playing ever since. I found a league, and I've been playing nonstop. My wife, I see her every once in a while now, but I see a lot of disc golf. So, but I joined the PDGA in the end of 2019, and I've jumped in doing tournaments, running tournaments, playing in tournaments. Just started doing being a director of a league and all that. So yeah.
All right, brother. Well, let's dive right in. The PDGA, as you know, has a number of responsibilities, a number of projects always in the works, but most things can fall in line under one of two categories. The first category is membership. So we're talking about growing the membership and retaining existing members, and we're talking about serving those members with a variety of different types of services. So when it comes to membership, what are your ideas as to increasing and retaining members and how best to serve them? And as a board member, how will you accomplish this objective?
Sure. Well, I think as far as increasing membership, I think you need to start from the bottom and look at the youth and the juniors, because that's where it all starts right there. If you have youth and juniors playing, hopefully they'll grow up and have their kids play and whatnot, and we're increasing the membership that way. Also, just getting disc golf out there. I've been to this week, for instance, I've been to multiple places, and I have yet to see a disc golf basket, or even talk to anybody that knows what disc golf is. So just getting the word out there, letting people know what disc golf is, just even wearing a disc golf shirt and letting people know what disc golf is. But I think the biggest thing is, like I said, the youth. The youth is where everything starts, and it goes up from there. That's how we need to. Yeah.
Do you have any specific initiatives that you would like to present, or maybe there are initiatives that are already in action that you would like to continue or grow or expand or something like that?
Yes, I think, first of all, we need to be, disc golf needs to be into schools, into curriculums in schools. I know that's already being done a lot with UPlay, and I know I've talked to a lot of individuals who are trying to get it into schools. I think that's a huge way to do it. I also think that for the juniors especially, it's not just playing the game. There's a lot more to the sport than just playing it. I, for example, am not the greatest disc golfer, but I love the game and I want to be involved with it in any way I can. But I think right now, especially for the youth, all we're showing them is you can play the game. We need to have initiatives out there showing them and getting them in the door with other things like tournament directing, running a league, running a league for juniors or whatever. We need to do more for that. But also we need to do a lot for like the AM Worlds, for instance, or the Junior Worlds. It needs to be a true world championship where we're not having 1,000 rated players on the wait list and 700 rated players playing. I think everybody should be playing, but I think there needs to be more of a tiered system. Because if I'm a 700 rated player up against a 1,000 rated player, I'm not going to have very much fun. I mean, I probably will have fun. Let's be honest. I love disc golf, but somebody else may not have as much fun. So I think tiering that way everybody has a good time. Everybody continues to play the game.
Okay, yeah, this is a good place to segue kind of into that second category, that second overarching mandate of the PDGA, which is involved with competition and events. The PDGA is always focused on increasing access to events, in some cases by simply increasing the number of events themselves. We're very focused on increasing the quality of those events, the services provided to those who run events, that entire sort of realm. Similarly to the last question, what are some more of your thoughts, some things that you'd like to introduce perhaps, or existing projects you'd like to expand when it comes to that whole category of competition and events?
Sure. I mean, I think I pretty much said it with Junior Worlds. It's the same with AM Worlds, having something tiered to where more people are in, less people are sitting on the wait list. I go on the disc golf scene and I look at the comments when these registrations happen, and I hear the anger in people's comments. Although people will type anything they want online, but just having something easier access for the players, as far as like I said, tiered events. I also think we need to get out and we need to talk to the players more and get and tournament directors more, getting more feedback from them to hear what they have to say as far as what they think needs to happen with all that.
How exactly do we do that? How exactly do we communicate more and in a valuable way?
Sure. I don't know.
How would you propose?
I don't know if we need to have a specific person out there who's responsible for getting feedback from those people, or just having a suggestion box, something as easy as that. But I like the idea of having a designated person out there going around, and their responsibility is to get the feedback and bring it back to the board. I think that's a very, very good possibility of us being able to do that, and I think it's something that should be happening.
All right. Let's talk about you personally then for a minute, Anthony. Let's talk about your background, your specific education or professional experiences,
sure,
or just your skill set that make you a unique and potentially valuable member of a board like the PDGA Board of Directors.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as far as my professional background, I mean, I was in the Air Force for 6 years, got out, got my degree. In finance or in business administration, and then I went and worked in finance for 6 years. I think as far as what I bring to the board, though, I think I have a unique perspective, being somebody that hasn't been a PDGA member for a long, long time, somebody who's not playing at a top level. I'm right there in the middle of a majority of the people that are playing the game. So I think I have the unique perspective of with that and being able to talk to people. I love talking to people. Anytime I'm out at the disc golf course, I talk to people and just bring that feedback for my personal gain. But I think I can bring that to the board to help grow the sport and make it a better place. One of my biggest goals is I have 3 kids. I try to get them to play disc golf, but I really, truly want to make the game better for them than it is for us now. And right now it's already amazing. So my biggest goal is to make the game better for them when they get to the levels that I'm at.
Okay. You've couched a lot of your responses today from the standpoint of essentially youth and education, right?
Yep.
Growing the game among the younger demographics. So I just want to ask you to maybe think for a moment and expand beyond that just into any other areas. Obviously, the PDGA, the number of areas involving governing this sport on a global scale are almost too numerous to name. So just think for a minute outside of just the area of youth and education where you have some particular thoughts, maybe some causes that you would like to champion, or to put it a different way, maybe some problems that you would like to help solve.
Yeah, that's a good question. My biggest thing is youth and education, but I also think growing the sport just as a whole. I think we need bigger sponsorships from not just disc golf related. I know that that's something that's been talked about before by other people, but if we want to grow the sport, if we want to grow it to the level that we want it, it needs to be more than we need to grow. We need bigger sponsors. We need to get it out into the world more. Like I said, I've been around the world. I've been this week. I've been all over the place, and I have yet to see a disc golf basket. So I think that we need to just expand the game worldwide. If we want that diversity in all realms, then we have to expand the sponsorships. We have to expand the education among all athletes in all regions.
Okay, Anthony. Well, before we let you go for this afternoon, I just want to give you kind of one final opportunity to share any other points that you would like to share with the membership as they will be voting beginning on July 1st. Are there any parting thoughts that you want to leave with them before they cast their vote?
No, other than I hope you all go out and vote, whether it's for me or anybody else. I hope you vote. First of all, I will say if you vote for me, I may not have a ton of professional background. I may not have been playing disc golf for a ton of time, but everything I've done in disc golf, I've jumped headfirst in and I've succeeded. And I would do the same with this position. And I have the passion for disc golf to be successful in this position.
All right. That's Anthony Davis, PDGA number 147833, running for the PDGA Board of Directors in 2022. Anthony, thanks for spending a little time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Welcoming in now Caleb Franklin, PDGA number 100331 of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Caleb is a recreation supervisor by trade. And Caleb, first of all, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
By way of sort of completing that bio, why don't you tell us a little bit more about when and how you discovered disc golf and why it has remained a passion for however many years that has been. Tell us about those kinds of things.
Sure. It's kind of a two-part. I have two different starts of disc golf. The first time I picked up a disc was in 2008 when I was in high school. And at the time, my buddies and I played. We all had one disc, and I threw a thumber off of pretty much every tee. And I played that way for like 7 years before I knew anything outside of that existed. I didn't even know people threw backhand and forehand. And then I played on and off, and then in 2017, I had moved down to Baytown, Texas, and I took a job down there. And then just in looking things to do, I took my one disc and went to a local course, and then found out that there was I heard somebody say there was going to be a tournament. I was like, oh, that'll be cool, and I kind of expected it to be a bunch of guys with one disc, and I showed up, and there's 40 guys with bags and carts and 40 discs, and it kind of opened my eyes to this whole world that I had no idea existed. And I've been playing disc golf on and off for 9 years at that point, and I still had no idea. And then what really kind of hooked me in is there was a Jomez round that was actually on my home course in 2017. Texas States was at Evergreen Disc Golf Course in Baytown, and somebody told me like, oh yeah, go watch the go watch this. The pros played here like last year, or it was actually a few months before I moved down there. And when I watched that and saw it, I was like blown away. And from that point, I was just hooked. Once I realized that what people could do with a disc, I was like, all right, I want to do that. So I first picked up a disc in 2008, but I really started playing disc golf in 2017, and then haven't really looked back since.
And it's about that time that you joined the PDGA?
Yeah, pretty shortly after that. I played my first sanctioned tournament, I think, in fall of 2017. I think I was introduced to that, played for about 3 months, and then I decided to venture to the world of sanctioned tournaments, which is why I joined the PDGA. So I wish I would have been a little bit more aware of the numbering system, because I got 100331. If I was paying attention, I could have shot for number 100,000, but
Not bad, not bad. All right, well, let's get sort of to the heart of the matter here. You're running for one of 2 open seats on the PDGA Board of Directors, with voting beginning soon. So a couple of questions to learn a little bit more about your candidacy and about why it is that you want to run and what you hope to accomplish if elected. So first of all, the PDGA has several overarching mandates. Okay, one is membership. So we're talking about growing the membership. We're talking about retaining members. We're talking about expanding services that are just for members. The other overarching mandate is competition itself. So that would be creating an ever-increasing number of events, supporting those events, increasing the quality of those events, and the accessibility of those events to more and more people. So let's talk about that first mandate. When it comes to membership, what are your ideas when it comes to increasing and retaining members, and how best to serve them? And as a board member, how do you hope to contribute to this objective?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing you said, retaining membership is really important. We always talk about how it's doubled in the last few years from over 100,000 to 200,000 pretty quickly. But the question is, are we retaining members and coming back? So I think retaining membership is really important. And it kind of ties into tournaments, because when I think about membership and why I am a member and continue to be, the driving factor for me personally is that I enjoy competition and I enjoy playing tournaments. I like the rating system. I know that people think it has issues in it, but I just like the idea of a rating system and the divisions. I can see benchmarks that I set for myself, and improvement. That's how I thrive and play disc golf. However, I think when you're talking about retaining membership, you have to ask, what about people that aren't competitively driven? How do we get them to retain membership? Maybe I'm somebody that isn't a huge fan of playing tournaments. How do I make that person want to come back and play disc golf? And I think that there's a couple ways to go about that. But the main thing is, like with tournaments, one of the things that I think I put this in my bio that I'm really big on is transparency with tournament directors and expected value for the tournament. So if I'm going to go sign up for a tournament, I'm going to pay $50 for a tournament. I'm going to ask myself, what am I getting for my $50? What that as an AM, I think a lot of people can relate to signing up for a tournament and feeling both ways. Playing a tournament that was really high value in terms of like players packs and payout and all that, and then the other side where you walk away like, where'd all my money go? I paid $50 and the players pack felt like nothing. And I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but so with the with transparency, what I was talking about is the PDGA has a really cool payout chart for tournaments, but I don't think it's required at all to display. But like, for example, I played a tournament, I think it's the Illinois Amateur Championship last year, and I go to the tournament page for that, and in black and white they have the payout chart. It shows every division, where the dollars went, how many positions are getting paid out, how much went into players pack. So kind of circling back to what's the value that I'm getting, I think expected value and knowing what you're getting out of a tournament is really important to get people to come back and play on top of the competition aspect. So one of the things I would like to push for is make that a requirement for C tiers and above, to share that payout chart, to put out that transparency of this is what you're getting, this is where your money is going, this is what the payout's going to be, so there's no surprises. For the majority of tournaments I've played have been great, and they're really high value, but I think pretty much any disc golfer can relate to that experience of playing a tournament and kind of walking away and kind of trying to look around and see where the money went and not having that transparency. And I think that can push people away. So I think that's a huge thing with retaining membership.
What are some things that you think can be done to increase access to events? And maybe this ties into your previous answer. People that maybe normally wouldn't play an event, what can be done to get them to play an event and then perhaps to play more events after that?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think when I think about getting people to want to play events, just look at other like let's look at female disc golfers and women. My wife, for example, plays, and there's a lot of times where there's tournaments where there might not be anybody signed up for her division. So if she goes to play, she wants to play FA3. There's nobody signed up. She doesn't necessarily want to just go sign up for that division because she doesn't get to compete against anybody. She's pretty much paying $50 for a player's pack. If she's not competitively driven, then yeah. So I think some of the things you can do is increase payouts for smaller divisions like that to encourage people to play. You know, if there's only one person coming out, you're actually going to get far more than you put into it in terms of players' pack and payouts, and then that might lead to more people coming and joining those smaller divisions. In terms of accessibility, just in general. I think it's no secret that there's a financial barrier to playing tournaments for a lot of people, and that's another thing that ties into retaining membership is, if you're going to be playing 4, 5, 6 tournaments a year to get your your value out of your membership, you're talking $50 for PDGA membership, probably $35 to $50 a tournament. That's a few $100s a year that a lot of people can't pony up. So you have a lot of people that are playing that aren't members. One of the things I think that the PDGA could do is some sort of like scholarship program for people to apply for that can't, maybe to pay for a PDGA membership for a year because they don't have the financial flexibility to play, but they want to compete. I think that's a good way to increase accessibility. And then just like I said, encouraging, make it easier to break into those divisions where there's only 1 or 2 people playing. Because like I said, for my wife, she's far more likely to sign up for a tournament if we go to sign up and there's already 3 women that are signed up. If there's nobody signed up, she might just say, I'll just be your caddy. And I've talked to women that have that same experience. That I remember last year I was playing a tournament and she was playing with her husband and she said, yeah, I'd love to play, but there was nobody in my division, so I just decided to caddy instead. And I think that's a shame. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of holding back people from those divisions that are lower numbers.
Whether inside these sort of areas of focus or even bringing in broader areas of focus, what other issues or priorities do you hope to champion if you are a member of the board? Or to put it a different way, what other areas do you hope to see changes or improvements? Yeah.
One of the things is increasing the resources for new TDs or I guess existing TDs as well. If you talk about, like I said, with TD transparency, let's be honest, that might push some TDs away if they have to be transparent about where their money's going. So we want to make it really easier for people that want to come in and invest time into it to come in and be a TD. And I say this because I've never ran an event, but I was interested in doing it last year, and I started. And PDGA website has that; they have kind of a step-by-step guide. But there's some points where I got to where I was like, I'm not really sure. Like the main thing for me was like, how do I handle all this money coming in and out? I'm just a guy. Like I'm not an LLC or anything. And I think increasing the resources for people that want to be TDs. One of those big resources is the idea of sponsorship and how to pitch sponsorships for events. I work in recreation professionally, so a lot of what we do a lot of sponsorship within our community, and seeking sponsorships and pitching that. And I think for a lot of people that the idea of pitching a sponsorship is maybe that's a little daunting, but it can be the difference between a good event and a great event is an event that gets a lot of local sponsors. And so maybe you have a resource that is lays out there how to seek a sponsorship in your community. Here's a baseline letter from the PDGA of what your sponsorship does and what it brings to the community. And so it's really easy if I'm a new TD and I don't know how to seek sponsorships, I have that resource to show me, take this to local businesses, pitch it to businesses in the area, and it helps your tournament. And then, you talk about disc golf being a globally recognized brand and wanting to grow the sport. You want to grow to people that don't play disc golf just so they know what disc golf is. So when you go into your local restaurant and say, hey, do you want to sponsor the disc golf tournament? They're like, oh yeah, I see people playing at the park all the time. I know all about disc golf. That's a huge step that I don't think a lot of people talk about, is when they say grow the sport. It's more than just getting more people playing. It's getting more people just to know what it is. I mean, 8 years ago, but pre-pandemic, a lot of people they'd see a basket in a park and had no idea what it is. We've seen a lot of that growth lately.
Those are some good examples. Let's try to expand on them just a little bit more when it comes to your personal skills, your personal experience, your professional experience or education or whatnot. Let's talk about what of those you think you bring to the board that make you a uniquely effective candidate.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, I work in recreation. I worked as an athletic manager for 2.5 years in Baytown, Texas, and now I'm back here in Milwaukee as recreation supervisor is my title, and I run youth sport programming and stuff. One of the big things that I think that translates very well, and there's a reason you see a lot of rec professional, I think there's a handful of them that are applying for this year, is recreation is all about planning and understanding I guess what can go wrong. So when you talk about like planning events or writing rules in a rule book or all this, as a rec professional, your whole job is like, okay, how could this be interpreted another way? What could go wrong, and how can we fix it before it happens? I think that's a pretty good skill set to have in a situation like this, is being able to analyze things and think about, all right, where are the holes in this and how can we fix it before it becomes an issue? And then, yeah, like I said, I have some event management experience. I ran a Special Olympics track meet and just hosting athletic events and managing youth sport programs and all that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of that translates pretty well.
So let's imagine that you've been elected to the board and you've served the entirety of your term. At the end of your term, what will success look like?
I think success will look like a higher rate of retained players that are coming back and playing tournaments year to year. And I don't know if this is, I was kind of looking around at the PDGA website. I don't know if this is readily available information, but we saw a lot of people that started playing in 2020 that joined memberships. I'd be curious to know how many of them, the people that signed up and played their first tournament post-pandemic in 2020 are still playing tournaments 2 years later. I don't know if that's easily accessible information or not, but I think that's one of the things that's successful is, are people that are signing up, are they continuing to play at a higher, or are they returning as members at a higher rate? So an increased percentage in retained memberships, and then just increasing the amount of the diversity in the sport in terms of gender equality, in terms of racial equality and economic equality. If we see more female disc golfers coming into the game, and we see more people of color coming into the game, I think all these things are good signs of success.
What about those players you mentioned that are not necessarily motivated to compete or to play in a large number of tournaments? How do you, as a board member, do you create a matrix for measuring success among those people?
Yeah, that's tough to say. It's tough to say how you measure success with those people, other than anecdotally talking to people. I'm sure there's good ways to do it, and I'd sit down and think about it. But I think you look at ways to do that would be. Maybe you have try and think of other further benefits to PDGA membership outside of just the competition aspect. I know there's some with like the discounts you get, and when you first sign up, you get a new disc, and maybe you do a disc every year instead of just the first time. But yeah, I mean that's a good question in terms of how would you weigh that success. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have a great answer for that yet.
All right, Caleb. Any final thoughts before we let you go today?
No, I think that's it. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to the election and see how it goes.
All right. That's Caleb Franklin, a candidate for board member 2022 at the PDGA. Thanks once again, Caleb.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.